Hook, 100 words. Nathan Reed thought he had buried his wife 2 years ago. Then he walked into a Monday morning staff meeting and saw her standing at the front of the conference room, alive, breathing, smiling that exact same way Olivia used to smile when she was about to change someone's entire world. Except it wasn't Olivia. It was the new CEO. And she had no idea why the senior architect in the third row looked like he'd just seen a ghost. Want to know what happens when the dead come back wearing a stranger's name? Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Nathan Reed's hands were shaking so badly he had to grip the edge of the conference table just to keep them still. The woman at the front of the room kept talking. Something about quarterly projections. Something about restructuring the design teams. Her voice was calm, professional. Exactly the kind of voice you'd expect from someone who'd just been named CEO of one of Charlotte's most prestigious architecture firms at 30 years old. But Nathan couldn't hear a single word she was saying. All he could see was Olivia. Same eyes, that impossible silver-green color that changed depending on the light, like seawater shifting between storm and calm. Same hands, long-fingered and graceful, gesturing as she spoke. Same way of tilting her head slightly to the left when she was making a point she really believed in. His chest felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed until his lungs forgot how to work. Nathan? The voice came from his left. Marcus Chen, one of the junior architects, was staring at him with obvious concern. You okay, man? You look like you're about to pass out. Nathan forced himself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The way the grief counselor had taught him back when breathing felt like an optional activity he could simply choose to stop. I'm fine, he lied. At the front of the room, the woman who looked exactly like his dead wife was wrapping up her introduction. I know change can be difficult, she was saying, but I'm excited to work with all of you. My door is always open if anyone wants to discuss concerns, ideas, or just get to know each other better. She smiled. Nathan felt something crack inside his chest. That smile. Jesus Christ, that smile. Any questions? The woman asked. Nathan stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Every head in the room turned toward him. I'm sorry, he said, his voice coming out rougher than he intended. I just remembered I have a call I can't miss. He didn't wait for permission. He just walked out, ignoring the confused looks from his colleagues. Ignoring the way his project manager called his name, ignoring everything except the desperate need to get out of that room before he completely fell apart in front of 20 people who already thought he was barely holding it together. The men's bathroom on the 4th floor was blessedly empty. Nathan locked himself in the furthest stall and leaned his forehead against the cool metal door, trying to remember how to exist in a world that apparently thought it was acceptable to resurrect his wife and install her as his boss. His phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Dude, what the hell? You good? Nathan didn't answer. Another buzz. This time from his project manager, Linda. Need to talk. My office when you're ready. He turned his phone face down on the toilet paper dispenser and closed his eyes. 2 years. It had been exactly 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days since Olivia collapsed in their kitchen while making pancakes on a Sunday morning. 2 years since their daughter Emma, then only 4 years old, had stood in the doorway asking why Mommy was sleeping on the floor. 2 years since Nathan's entire world had imploded in the space between one heartbeat and the absence of the next. Sudden cardiac arrest, the doctors said. No warning signs. Nothing anyone could have done. Just one moment she was there, laughing as she tried to flip a Mickey Mouse-shaped pancake without breaking the ears, and the next she was gone. Nathan had spent the following months moving through life like a ghost himself, getting Emma to preschool, showing up to work, paying bills, eating food that all tasted like cardboard, sleeping when his body forced him to, and lying awake staring at the ceiling when it didn't. The grief counselor said it would get easier. It hadn't gotten easier. It had just gotten different. He'd learned how to exist around the massive, gaping hole where Olivia used to be. He'd learned how to smile at Emma's kindergarten concerts without crying. He'd learned how to cook the chicken nuggets she liked and braid her hair in a way that didn't make the other kindergarten moms look at him with that particular mixture of pity and concern. He'd learned how to survive. And now, apparently, the universe had decided that wasn't enough. Nathan's phone buzzed again. He ignored it. He stayed in that bathroom stall for 20 minutes before he finally forced himself to leave, splashing cold water on his face and avoiding his own reflection in the mirror because he knew exactly what he'd see there. A man who looked older than 32, with shadows under his eyes and a permanent tightness around his mouth that hadn't been there before Olivia died. Linda was waiting outside his office when he got back. "Conference room," she said. Not unkindly, but not a suggestion either. Nathan followed her to one of the small meeting rooms on the third floor, the ones usually reserved for difficult conversations with clients. She closed the door behind them and gestured for him to sit. "Want to tell me what that was about?" she asked. Nathan stared at the blank whiteboard on the wall. "Personal issue. Won't happen again. Nathan," Linda's voice softened. "I've known you for 6 years. I was at Olivia's funeral. I know you're still dealing with a lot, but walking out of a meeting with the new CEO like that, I know. Do you?" He looked at her. Linda was 53, had been with the firm for 20 years, and had a particular talent for cutting through bullshit with surgical precision. She'd also been the one who'd quietly rearranged Nathan's entire project schedule in the months after Olivia died, making sure he didn't have any deadlines that would require late nights or weekend work. He owed her honesty. "She looks exactly like Olivia," Nathan said quietly. Linda's expression shifted from concern to confusion. "What?" "The new CEO, Evelyn Hart. She looks exactly like my wife." There was a long pause. "Exactly?" Linda asked carefully. Nathan laughed, but it came out wrong, brittle and sharp. "Same face, same eyes, same smile, same everything. I walked into that meeting and for about 3 seconds I genuinely thought I was losing my mind." Linda sat back in her chair, processing this information. Nathan, that's incredibly unfortunate timing." "Yeah." "What do you need?" The question caught him off guard. "What? What do you need?" Linda repeated. "Do you need to request a transfer to a different team? Do you need to take some time off? Do you need me to run interference so you don't have to interact with her directly?" Bachim. Nathan hadn't even considered those options. He'd been too busy trying to remember how to breathe. "I don't know," he admitted. "Think about it," Linda said. "But Nathan, you need to figure this out. Because whether she looks like Olivia or not, Evelyn Hart is our CEO now. She's going to be at every major meeting, every company event, I know. So you can't just run away every time you see her." Nathan knew she was right. He also knew that asking him not to run away from the woman wearing his dead wife's face was like asking him to casually stick his hand in a fire and expect it not to hurt. "I'll handle it," he said. Linda didn't look convinced, but she nodded. "Okay, but if that changes, you tell me. Understood?" "Understood." She stood to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. That's a really shit hand to be dealt." After she left, Nathan sat alone in the conference room for a long time, staring at nothing. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a calendar reminder. "Pick up Emma from school. 3:15 p.m. Right. He had a 6-year-old daughter who needed him to be functional. Nathan took a deep breath and stood up. He could fall apart later. Bachet. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in avoidance. Nathan became an expert at checking Evelyn Hart's calendar before leaving his office, timing his movements through the building to minimize the chance of running into her in the hallways. He started taking the stairs instead of the elevator. He ate lunch at his desk instead of in the company cafeteria. He volunteered to work from home on days when he knew she'd be conducting office tours. It was exhausting. It was also completely unsustainable. Marcus noticed first. "You're being weird," he announced one afternoon, dropping into the chair across from Nathan's desk uninvited. "I'm working." "You're hiding." Nathan didn't look up from his computer screen. "I'm not hiding, but..." "Really? Because I haven't seen you in a company meeting in 3 weeks. You missed the design review for the Morrison project. You weren't at the team lunch yesterday." And Janet from accounting said, "You've been submitting your expense reports by email instead of bringing them to her office like you usually do. Janet talks too much." Nathan. Marcus. Marcus leaned forward, his expression unusually serious. Look, I don't know what happened in that first meeting with Hart, and you don't have to tell me. But whatever it is, you need to deal with it. Because this? He gestured at Nathan's office, at the stacks of files and half-eaten lunch, and the clear evidence of someone who is trying very hard to make himself invisible. This isn't sustainable. Nathan finally looked at him. I'm handling it. You're hiding in your office like a vampire who forgot to check the sunrise schedule. Despite everything, Nathan almost smiled. That's a terrible metaphor. Yeah, well, I'm an architect, not a poet. Marcus stood up. Just don't let whatever this is eat you alive, okay? We already lost you for 6 months after Olivia died. I'd really rather not lose you again. After Marcus left, Nathan stared at his computer screen without seeing it. He knew his friend was right. He knew this couldn't continue. He knew that eventually, inevitably, he was going to have to face Evelyn Hart directly. He just didn't know how to do that without completely losing whatever fragile control he'd managed to build over the past 2 years. His phone rang. Emma's school. Nathan's stomach immediately clenched. Emma rarely called from school unless something was wrong. Mr. Reed, the voice on the other end belonged to Mrs. Patterson, Emma's first-grade teacher. Emma's fine, but she's asking to go home. She says her stomach hurts. 20 minutes later, Nathan was signing Emma out at the school office. She looked small in her pink backpack, her brown hair pulled into the lopsided ponytail he'd attempted that morning. Hey, sweetheart, he said, kneeling down to her level. Mrs. Patterson said your stomach hurts? Emma nodded solemnly. It hurts a lot. Nathan pressed the back of his hand to her forehead. No fever. Does it hurt, or does it feel yucky? Yucky, which meant anxious, not sick. Emma had been doing this more often lately. Phantom stomach aches that appeared whenever she felt overwhelmed or worried. Okay, Nathan said gently. Let's get you home. In the car, Emma was quiet, too quiet. Want to talk about it? Nathan asked, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Talk about what? Whatever made your stomach feel yucky. Emma was silent for a long moment. Then, in a very small voice, Sophie said her mom is pregnant. Nathan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Oh yeah? She said she's going to have a baby brother. And Tyler said his mom had a baby last year, and now he has a baby sister. Emma paused. I asked Mrs. Patterson if my mom was going to have a baby, and she got really sad and said I should talk to you. Nathan felt something sharp lodge itself in his throat. Emma rarely asked about Olivia anymore. In the early days after the funeral, she'd asked constantly, where did Mommy go? When is Mommy coming back? Why can't we visit Mommy in heaven? But over time, those questions had faded, replaced by a sort of careful silence around the subject, as if Emma had learned that talking about her mother made the adults around her sad. Nathan said carefully, you remember that Mommy died, right? We talked about how she got very sick very fast and the doctors couldn't fix it. I remember. Emma's voice was matter-of-fact in the way only 6-year-olds could manage. But Sophie's mom was sick too, and she got better. Why didn't our mom get better? Nathan pulled into their driveway and turned off the car. He twisted around to look at his daughter properly. Sometimes, he said slowly, people get sick in ways that doctors can fix. Like when you had strep throat last year and we gave you medicine and you got better. But sometimes people get sick in ways that doctors can't fix, no matter how hard they try. That's what happened with Mommy. Her heart stopped working, and it happened so fast that nobody could help. Emma processed this. So she's not coming back? No, sweetheart, she's not coming back. But I miss her. I know. Nathan unbuckled his seatbelt and climbed into the back seat next to Emma, pulling her into his lap. I miss her too, every single day. Emma buried her face in his shirt. I don't remember what her voice sounds like anymore. Nathan's heart cracked a little wider. You want to watch some videos of her tonight? We have a bunch on the computer. Emma nodded against his chest. They sat there in the driveway for a while, Nathan holding his daughter while she cried quietly for the mother she was forgetting a little more every day. And Nathan tried very hard not to think about the woman at his office, who wore Olivia's face like a borrowed coat. That night, after Emma fell asleep watching old videos of Olivia reading her bedtime stories, Nathan poured himself a whiskey he didn't really want and sat on the back porch in the dark. His phone buzzed. A work email. From Evelyn Hart. Subject line. Meeting request. Project Morrison. Nathan stared at the notification for a long time before finally opening it. Mr. Reed, I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss the Morrison project timeline. I've reviewed the preliminary designs and have some questions about the structural approach for the West Wing. Would Thursday at 2 p.m. work for you? Best, Evelyn Hart Professional. Polite. Completely unaware that Nathan had spent the last 3 weeks actively avoiding being in the same room with her. Nathan read the email 3 times, then drained his whiskey and typed a response. Miss Hart, Thursday at 2 p.m. works. I'll bring the updated schematics. Nathan Reed. He hit send before he could talk himself out of it. Then he sat on the porch for another hour, wondering if there was any possible way this meeting could go well, and knowing with absolute certainty that it wouldn't. Thursday arrived faster than Nathan wanted. He spent the morning trying to prepare for the meeting and failing spectacularly. He printed the Morrison schematics twice because he forgot he'd already done it. He rehearsed what he was going to say, then immediately forgot all of it. He changed his shirt 3 times, which was insane because this was a work meeting, not a date, and also because no amount of wardrobe choices were going to make this situation less catastrophically awkward. At 1:55 p.m., Nathan stood outside Evelyn Hart's office with the schematics tucked under his arm and his heart beating like he was about to walk into an active combat zone. Her assistant, a pleasant woman named Joyce, who'd been with the company longer than Nathan had, smiled at him. Go right in, she's expecting you. Nathan knocked anyway. Come in. He opened the door. Evelyn Hart was standing by the window, backlit by the afternoon sun, and for one horrible moment Nathan forgot how to breathe all over again. She turned, smiled. Mr. Reed, thanks for coming. Nathan is fine. Then you should call me Evelyn. She gestured to the small conference table in the corner of her office. Have a seat. Nathan sat, put the schematics on the table, tried to focus on literally anything except the fact that she had the same slight crease between her eyebrows that Olivia used to get when she was concentrating. So, Evelyn said, sitting across from him, the Morrison project. Right, work. He could do work. The West Wing is challenging because of the existing foundation, Nathan began, sliding the schematics toward her. The original building dates back to the 1920s, and the load-bearing walls aren't positioned in a way that makes modern renovation easy. We're proposing a steel framework that would… Nathan. He stopped talking. Evelyn was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Can we talk about the elephant in the room? Nathan's stomach dropped. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. She leaned back in her chair. You've been avoiding me for 3 weeks. You weren't at the design review meeting. You weren't at the team lunch. According to Joyce, you've rescheduled 2 previous meeting requests. She paused. Did I do something to offend you? No. Then what's going on? Nathan looked down at the schematics, at the careful lines and measurements, at something concrete and fixable, and nothing like the absolute mess of emotion currently threatening to strangle him. It's complicated, he finally said. I'm reasonably intelligent. Try me. Nathan laughed, sharp and humorless. You really want to know? I wouldn't have asked if I didn't. He looked up at her, at those silver-green eyes, at the face that had been haunting him for 3 weeks straight. You look exactly like my dead wife, Nathan said. The words hung in the air between them. Evelyn's expression shifted through several emotions too quickly for Nathan to track. What? My wife died 2 years ago, and you… He gestured vaguely at her. You look exactly like her. Same eyes, same smile, same everything. Walking into that first meeting felt like someone had brought her back from the dead just to torture me. There was a long, terrible silence. I'm sorry, Evelyn said quietly. I didn't know. How could you? Is that why you've been avoiding me? Nathan nodded. Another silence. Then Evelyn said something that made Nathan's entire world tilt sideways. What was her name? Your wife? Olivia, Nathan said. Olivia Reed. Evelyn went very, very still. Olivia Reed, she repeated slowly. From Charlotte? Nathan felt something cold slide down his spine. Yes. Why? Evelyn stood up abruptly and walked back to the window. She stood there for a long moment, her back to Nathan, her shoulders rigid. "Evelyn, I need to show you something," she said without turning around. "But I need you to prepare yourself because this is going to be difficult." Nathan stood. "What are you talking about?" Evelyn crossed to her desk and pulled out her phone. She tapped a few times, then held it out to him. Nathan took it. On the screen was a photograph of two women standing together in what looked like a coffee shop. They were both smiling, arms around each other's shoulders, looking genuinely happy. One of them was Evelyn. The other was Olivia. Nathan's hand started shaking so badly he almost dropped the phone. "I don't understand," he said. Evelyn's voice was carefully controlled. 2 years ago, I got a notification from a DNA registry website I'd signed up for on a whim. It said I had a match. A half-sister I didn't know existed." She paused. Her name was Olivia Reed. Nathan couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what he was hearing. "That photo was taken in Boston," Evelyn continued. "We met for a weekend, just one weekend. She told me about her family, about her husband who was an architect, about her daughter who loved painting. She said she was going to introduce me to both of you, that she wanted me to be part of her life, part of her family." Evelyn's voice cracked slightly. "And then 2 weeks later, I got a notification that she'd died." Nathan sat down heavily in the nearest chair. "You're her sister," he said. "Half-sister," Evelyn corrected. "Different fathers, same mother. We were both given up for adoption, just at different times. She never told me. She was planning to, after she'd had more time to process it herself." Evelyn finally turned to look at him. "I've been carrying this for 2 years, Nathan. When I accepted this position, I knew the firm was in Charlotte. I knew there was a chance I might run into you, but I didn't expect you to work here. I didn't expect—" She stopped. "I'm sorry, I should have said something sooner." Nathan stared at the photo on the phone, at his wife, alive and smiling next to the sister she'd never gotten to introduce him to. "I need to go," he said abruptly. "Nathan, I need to go." He stood up, left the schematics on the table, and walked out of the office. Behind him, he heard Evelyn call his name. He didn't stop. He made it to his car before the full weight of what he'd just learned hit him like a freight train. Evelyn wasn't just someone who looked like Olivia. She was Olivia's sister. The sister Olivia had been so excited to find, the sister she'd wanted to bring into their family, the sister she'd dreamed of introducing to Emma. Nathan gripped the steering wheel and tried to remember how to breathe. The universe apparently wasn't done torturing him after all. Nathan didn't go home. He drove to the park where he used to take Olivia on Sunday mornings, back when Sunday mornings were still a thing that existed in his life, instead of just another stretch of hours to survive. He parked in the same spot they always used to claim, under the oak tree that dropped acorns on the hood every fall, and he sat there with the engine off and the windows down, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Evelyn Hart wasn't just a stranger who happened to look like his wife. She was Olivia's sister. The sister Olivia had found and never got to tell him about. The sister she'd been planning to introduce to their family. The sister who'd spent the last 2 years carrying around the same grief Nathan had, except she'd been grieving alone, without anyone who understood what she'd lost. Nathan's phone rang. He looked at the screen. Linda. He didn't answer. It rang again. Marcus this time. He turned the phone off. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that Olivia would have loved. She'd always been obsessed with sunsets, dragging him outside at the most inconvenient times just to watch the light change. Nathan used to think it was impractical, standing around watching the sky when there were dishes to wash and emails to answer and a million other things that needed doing. He'd give anything to watch a sunset with her now. His phone buzzed with the text before the screen went dark. He caught a glimpse of the preview notification. Evelyn Hart, please let me explain. Nathan closed his eyes and leaned his head back against the seat. What was there to explain? The facts were brutally simple. Olivia had found her biological sister through some DNA website. They'd met once, shared one weekend together, and then Olivia died before she could bring Evelyn home to meet the family she'd been so excited to share with her. And now that sister was Nathan's boss. The universe had a sick sense of humor. Nathan sat in that parking lot until the sky went completely dark, and the temperature dropped enough that he started shivering in just his shirt sleeves. Then he finally turned his phone back on, ignored the 7 missed calls and 12 text messages, and drove home. Emma's babysitter, a college student named Rachel, who lived 3 houses down, looked relieved when he walked through the door. "Everything okay?" she asked, gathering her backpack. "You're usually home by 6. Nathan glanced at the clock on the microwave. 8:45. "Sorry," he said. "Work thing ran late. I should have texted." Rachel waved him off. "It's fine. Emma was great. We made mac and cheese for dinner, and she's already in her pajamas. She's in the living room watching that movie about the girl with the long hair. Tangled. That's the one." Rachel paused at the door. "Are you sure you're okay? You look kind of—" "I'm fine," Nathan lied. "Thanks for staying late." After Rachel left, Nathan found Emma curled up on the couch with her favorite blanket, eyes glued to the TV screen. She didn't look up when he sat down next to her. "Hey, Bug," he said quietly. "Hi, Daddy." Sorry I'm late." Emma finally looked at him. "Rachel said you had to work." "Yeah. Did you get in trouble?" The question caught him off guard. "What?" "No. Why would I be in trouble?" Emma shrugged, her attention already drifting back to the screen. "You look sad. You look sad when you're in trouble." Nathan pulled her against his side. "I'm not in trouble, just had a long day." They watched the rest of the movie in silence, Emma narrating her favorite parts, even though Nathan had seen it approximately 300 times and could recite the dialogue himself. When the credits rolled, he carried her upstairs to bed, tucked her in, and sat on the edge of the mattress the way he did every night. "Daddy?" Emma's voice was sleepy. "Yeah, Bug? Do you think Mommy can see us from heaven?" Nathan's throat tightened. "I think so." "Do you think she's proud of us?" I know she is." Emma seemed satisfied with this answer. She rolled over, hugging her stuffed rabbit, and was asleep within minutes. Nathan stayed there longer than he needed to, watching his daughter breathe, wondering how he was supposed to tell her that Mommy had a sister, that the sister was here in Charlotte, alive and real, and nothing like the vague concept of extended family that Emma barely understood. Would Emma even want to know? Would it help or hurt to learn that there was someone out there who carried Olivia's features, Olivia's mannerisms, pieces of Olivia embedded in a completely different person? Nathan didn't have answers. He went downstairs, poured himself another whiskey he didn't want, and finally opened his phone to look at the messages he'd been avoiding. Most were from Linda and Marcus, increasingly concerned variations on "Where are you?" and "Are you okay?" and "Call me back." 3 were from Evelyn. The first, "Please let me explain." The second, "I know this is a lot to process. Take whatever time you need." The third, sent an hour ago, "I'm sorry." For all of it, Nathan read them twice, then set his phone face down on the coffee table and stared at the dark TV screen. He didn't know what to do with sorry. Sorry didn't change anything. Sorry didn't bring Olivia back. Sorry didn't make this situation any less impossible. His phone rang. Nathan almost ignored it, assuming it was Marcus or Linda again, but when he glanced at the screen, he saw an unknown number with a Boston area code. He answered without thinking. "Hello? Nathan Reed?" The voice was male, older, unfamiliar. "Who's asking?" "My name is Dr. Richard Chen. I was Olivia's therapist." Nathan sat up straight. "I'm sorry, what?" "I apologize for calling so late," Dr. Chen continued. "Evelyn Hart contacted me this evening. She said you'd discovered that she and Olivia were sisters, and she was concerned about how you might be processing that information. She gave you my number?" "No, I already had your number. Olivia listed you as an emergency contact in her intake paperwork." There was a pause. "She came to see me 3 times before she died, Nathan. She was trying to work through her feelings about finding her biological sister." Nathan's head was spinning. "Olivia was in therapy?" "Just for a few sessions. She wanted help navigating the relationship with Evelyn. She was worried about how to tell you, how to introduce Evelyn to Emma, how to build a connection with someone who was genetically family, but essentially a stranger." Dr. Chen's voice was gentle. She was planning to bring you in for a session. She scheduled it for the week after she died. Nathan couldn't speak. I'm calling because Evelyn was worried about you, Dr. Chen said, and because I think you should know that Olivia was genuinely happy about finding her sister. She saw it as a gift, a second chance at the family connection she'd never had growing up in foster care. Why are you telling me this? Because grief is complicated enough without adding secrets to it, and because I think both you and Evelyn are carrying pieces of the same loss, and it's possible you might be able to help each other through it. Dr. Chen paused. I'm not suggesting anything specific, just don't close the door on this before you've had time to really think about what it might mean. After the call ended, Nathan sat in the dark living room for a long time, trying to process yet another revelation in a day that had been nothing but revelations. Olivia had been in therapy. Olivia had been planning to introduce him to Evelyn. Olivia had seen her sister as a gift, not a complication. Nathan thought about the DNA test, the one Olivia had done on a whim 2.5 years ago, after seeing some commercial about discovering your roots. He'd thought it was silly at the time, a waste of money for information neither of them particularly needed. Olivia had been adopted as an infant, raised by parents who loved her fiercely, and she'd always seemed at peace with not knowing her biological background. Apparently he'd been wrong about that too. Nathan finished his whiskey and went to bed, but sleep was impossible. He lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the conversations he and Olivia should have had, but never did. All the things she'd been carrying alone. All the ways he'd failed to notice that his wife had an entire emotional landscape he knew nothing about. Around 3 a.m, Nathan got up, went to the home office, and opened the closet where he'd stored all of Olivia's things after the funeral. Boxes of clothes, boxes of books, boxes of art supplies and half-finished paintings and journals she'd kept sporadically over the years. He pulled out the journals. There were 7 of them, ranging from a leather-bound book she'd gotten as a wedding gift to a cheap spiral notebook from the drugstore. Nathan had never read them, then. It felt like an invasion of privacy, even after she was gone. But if Olivia had written about Evelyn... Nathan opened the most recent journal, dated from the last 6 months of Olivia's life, and started reading. The first mention of the DNA test appeared 3 pages in, written in Olivia's messy handwriting that always slanted to the right. Got the results back today. No genetic health risks, which is a relief. Ancestry is mostly boring, European mutt, like I expected. But there's a match listed. A half-sister, same mother, different father. Her name is Evelyn. I don't know what to do with this information. Nathan turned the page. Can't stop thinking about Evelyn. Sent her a message through the DNA website. Not sure she'll respond. Not sure what I'd even say if she does. Do I want to know her? Do I want to open this door? I've spent 30 years being okay with not knowing where I came from. Is it selfish to want more now? More entries followed, charting Olivia's internal debate about whether to pursue contact. Then, about 2 months before she died, a longer entry. She responded. Evelyn responded. We've been emailing back and forth for a week now, and it's the strangest thing. Talking to someone who's genetically connected to me, but is a complete stranger. She's 28, works in business development in Boston, never married. She's funny, sarcastic in a way that feels familiar, like maybe we got that from our mother. I told Nathan I was corresponding with an old college friend. I don't know why I lied. I think I'm scared of what this means. What if we meet and we have nothing in common? What if I'm disappointed? What if she's disappointed in me? Nathan's hands were shaking. The next entry was dated 2 weeks later. I'm going to Boston this weekend. I told Nathan it's for a gallery showing. Another lie. I'm meeting Evelyn in person. I'm terrified. And then, after the Boston trip, I have a sister, an actual sister. We spent the entire weekend talking, and it felt like coming home to a place I've never been. She's brilliant and driven and a little bit damaged in the same ways I am. We both grew up in the system. We both spent our childhoods wondering what our biological mother was like. We both have this thing where we collect people because we never learned how to believe that family is permanent. I told her about Nathan and Emma. I showed her pictures. She cried when she saw Emma's face. She said Emma has our mother's smile. I didn't know our mother had a smile. I want Evelyn to meet my family. I want her to be part of our lives. I want Emma to grow up knowing she has an aunt. But I don't know how to tell Nathan. He's going to have questions I can't answer. He's going to want to know why I didn't tell him sooner. I don't have a good reason except that I was scared. Nathan closed the journal and put his head in his hands. Olivia had been scared. She'd found something precious and been terrified of how it might change everything, so she'd kept it to herself, planning to reveal it when she felt ready. Except she'd died before ready ever came. Nathan sat on the office floor surrounded by his dead wife's journals until the sun came up, reading entry after entry about the sister Olivia had loved and lost in the space of a few short weeks. By the time Emma woke up, Nathan had made a decision. He called in sick to work, made Emma pancakes for breakfast, and spent the morning trying to figure out how to explain to a 6-year-old that Mommy had a sister she'd never gotten to tell them about. In the end, he decided honesty was the only option. "Em," he said as they sat together on the back porch, watching the neighbor's cat hunt invisible prey in the grass. "I need to tell you something about Mommy." Emma looked up from her coloring book. "What about Mommy?" Before Mommy died, she found out she had a sister. A half-sister, actually. Someone who had the same biological mother, but a different father. Emma considered this with the seriousness of a child who'd grown up understanding that adult conversations sometimes required careful thought. Like how Sophie has a half-brother from her dad's first marriage? Exactly like that. Did Mommy's sister die too? No, she's alive. She lives here in Charlotte now, actually. Emma's eyes widened. Really? Can we meet her? Nathan's chest tightened. Would you want to? Yeah. Does she look like Mommy? Very much like Mommy. Does she know about me? She does. Mommy told her all about you. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, what's her name? Evelyn. That's a pretty name. Emma went back to her coloring. When can we meet her? Long. Nathan watched his daughter color a picture of a house with a purple roof and yellow walls, marveling at the way children could accept impossible things with such simple grace. I'm not sure yet, he said honestly, but maybe soon. That afternoon, Nathan finally responded to Evelyn's messages. Can we talk? Not at the office, somewhere neutral. Her response came within minutes. Coffee tomorrow morning? There's a place called Grounds on 4th Street. 8 a.m. I'll be there. Nathan spent the rest of the day second-guessing the decision, playing out 100 different versions of how the conversation might go, most of them ending with him walking out again or saying something unforgivable, or discovering that there was no possible way to navigate the situation without someone getting hurt. But when he showed up at Grounds the next morning at 7:55, Evelyn was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of her. She looked tired. Not just regular tired, but the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who hadn't been sleeping well for a very long time. Hi, she said as Nathan sat down. I got you a black coffee. That's what you ordered at the company coffee bar last month. You noticed that? I notice a lot of things. Evelyn pushed one of the cups toward him. I'm sorry for ambushing you with the truth like that. I should have told you before, or at least warned you, or, I don't know, handled it differently. Nathan wrapped his hands around the cup. I read Olivia's journals last night. Evelyn's expression shifted. Oh, she wrote about you, about how scared she was to meet you, and then how happy she was after Boston, and how much she wanted you to be part of our family. Nathan looked up. She was going to introduce us. Did you know that? She mentioned it. She said she wanted to wait until after Emma's 5th birthday, give herself time to figure out how to explain everything. Evelyn's voice was careful. And then she died 2 weeks before the party. Her therapist called me. I know. I asked him to. I hope that's okay. Why? Because I thought you deserved to hear from someone objective that Olivia was happy about finding me. That this wasn't some secret she was keeping because she was ashamed or conflicted. She was just scared. Evelyn paused. We were both scared, actually. Neither of us knew how to be sisters. Nathan took a sip of coffee. It was too hot and burned his tongue. What happened that weekend in Boston? We talked. A lot. About our childhoods, about the foster system, about the mother we never knew. About whether genetics actually means anything when you're raised by completely different people in completely different places. Evelyn smiled slightly. We discovered we both hate cilantro and love terrible reality TV and have this weird thing where we organize bookshelves by color instead of by author. Olivia organized everything by color, Nathan said quietly. Drove me crazy. Me too. I'm alphabetical for books, but everything else is color-coded. Evelyn wrapped her hands around her own coffee cup. We spent Saturday walking around Boston, just exploring. We went to this tiny art gallery in the North End, and Olivia spent 20 minutes analyzing this one painting, explaining why the artist's use of negative space was revolutionary. I didn't understand half of what she was saying, but I loved listening to her talk about it. Nathan could picture it perfectly. Olivia loved art galleries, loved standing in front of paintings for ages, seeing things nobody else could see. Sunday morning we had breakfast at this diner near my apartment, Evelyn continued. She showed me pictures of you and Emma. She talked about how you two met in college, how you proposed at that art museum in Raleigh, how Emma was born 3 weeks early, and you almost missed it because you were stuck in a meeting with a client. Evelyn's voice got quieter. She said you were the best thing that ever happened to her, that you made her feel safe in a way she'd never felt safe before. Nathan had to look away. She told you that? She did. They sat in silence for a while, both holding their coffee cups, both carrying the weight of the woman who'd connected them. I didn't expect to work with you, Evelyn finally said. When I accepted the CEO position, I knew the firm was in Charlotte. I knew there was a chance our paths might cross. But I didn't know you worked there. I didn't know until I walked into that conference room and saw your name on the roster. Did you recognize me from the pictures Olivia showed you? No, she showed me photos on her phone and I only saw them once. I didn't remember your face clearly enough to place you. Evelyn met his eyes. But I recognized the way you looked at me, like you'd seen a ghost. That's what it felt like. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing, Nathan said, more harshly than he intended. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. Then whose fault is it? Nobody's. It's just... Nathan struggled to find the right words. It's just a really terrible coincidence. Evelyn laughed, but it sounded broken. That's one way to put it. Emma wants to meet you, Nathan said abruptly. Evelyn went very still. What? I told her yesterday. About you. About Olivia finding her biological sister. Emma asked if she could meet you. Nathan paused. I said maybe. What do you want? It was the same question Linda had asked him weeks ago. What do you need? Nathan didn't have a good answer then, and he didn't have one now. I don't know, he admitted. Part of me thinks this is a terrible idea. That letting you into our lives is just going to make everything harder, more complicated, more painful. That Emma's going to get attached, and I'm going to have to watch someone else who looks exactly like Olivia exist in spaces where Olivia should be. And the other part? Nathan looked at Evelyn, really looked at her for the first time since walking into that conference room 4 weeks ago. He saw the exhaustion in her face, the careful way she held herself, like someone who'd learned not to expect much from the world and had been proven right too many times. He saw someone who was grieving the same person he was grieving, except she'd been doing it alone. The other part thinks Olivia would never forgive me if I let you disappear, Nathan said quietly. She wanted you in our lives. She wanted Emma to know she had an aunt. He stopped. She wanted a lot of things she didn't get. Evelyn's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I don't want to make this harder for you. It's already hard. I know. But I don't want to make it worse. Nathan drained the last of his coffee. It had gone lukewarm. Can I ask you something? Well, anything. Why did you take the job here? In Charlotte, I mean. You were in Boston. You had a life there. Why come here? Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. Because Charlotte was the last place Olivia lived. The last place she was happy. And I thought, I don't know. I thought maybe if I was here, I'd feel closer to her somehow. Like I could understand the life she'd built, the family she'd loved. She wiped her eyes quickly. Sounds stupid when I say it out loud. It doesn't sound stupid. They sat there in the coffee shop until the morning rush started and the table next to them filled with college students arguing about some assignment. Then Evelyn checked her watch and stood. I should get to the office, she said. Board meeting at 9. Nathan stood too. Evelyn? Yeah? Emma really does want to meet you, if you're open to it. Evelyn's face transformed, just for a second, just long enough for Nathan to see genuine joy break through the careful control she'd been maintaining. I'd love that. Whenever you think is right. Maybe this weekend, Saturday afternoon, we could meet at the park, somewhere public, low pressure. That sounds perfect. Nathan nodded, started to leave, then turned back. One more thing. What? At work? Can we just keep this quiet? I'm not ready for everyone to know yet. Of course. Whatever you need. After Evelyn left, Nathan sat back down and ordered another coffee. He pulled out his phone and opened the photo app, scrolling back to a picture from 2 years ago. Olivia, Emma, and Nathan at the beach. All three of them covered in sand and laughing at something that had seemed hilarious at the time, but Nathan couldn't remember anymore. He stared at Olivia's face in the photo, trying to imagine what she would say about all of this. Probably something about how life was complicated and messy, and nothing ever went according to plan, but that was what made it beautiful. Olivia had always been better at finding beauty in chaos than Nathan was. He texted Marcus, "I'm coming in today. Need to talk?" The response came immediately. Finally. "My office when you get here." Nathan paid for his coffee and headed to work, feeling like he was walking into the second act of a story he didn't know how to finish. Marcus was waiting with his door already open when Nathan arrived. "Sit," Marcus commanded. "Talk." Nathan sat, talked. He told Marcus everything, about Evelyn being Olivia's sister, about the Boston weekend, about the journals and the therapist, and Emma asking when she could meet her aunt. He left out some of the more painful details, but the core truth was there. When he finished, Marcus sat back in his chair and whistled low. "That is monumentally screwed up." "Yeah. What are you going to do?" "I have no idea." "Are you going to let Emma meet her?" "I already said yes." Marcus studied him. "How do you feel about that?" Nathan laughed humorlessly. Terrified, nauseous, like I'm making a huge mistake, but also like I'd be making an even bigger mistake if I didn't do it. "Sounds about right?" Marcus leaned forward. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Emma deserves to know her family, and Evelyn deserves to know the people Olivia loved. What if it's too hard? What if seeing her around Emma just makes everything worse? Then you deal with it. You've gotten pretty good at dealing with impossible things, Nathan." Nathan wasn't sure that was true, but he appreciated Marcus saying it anyway. He spent the rest of the day trying to focus on work, and mostly failing. The Morrison project schematics still needed revision. There were client emails to answer and team meetings to attend, and 1,000 small tasks that usually kept his brain occupied. But all he could think about was Saturday. All he could think about was watching Evelyn meet Emma for the first time, and whether it would feel like reuniting with family or tearing open a wound that had barely started to heal. By the time Friday afternoon rolled around, Nathan was a mess of anxiety and second-guessing. He picked Emma up from school and took her to get ice cream, partly because she'd had a good week and partly because he needed to prepare her for tomorrow. "Remember how I told you about Mommy's sister Evelyn?" he said as they sat on a bench outside the ice cream shop. Emma nodded, licking her strawberry cone. "Uh-huh. We're going to meet her tomorrow, at the park." Emma's face lit up. "Really? Really? But Em, I need you to understand something. Evelyn looks a lot like Mommy, and that might be confusing or upsetting or strange. If you feel weird about it at any point, you can tell me and we'll leave, okay?" Emma considered this with the gravity of a child who'd learned that adult emotions were complicated and deserved respect. "Will it make you sad? If she looks like Mommy?" "Probably a little bit. But you still want to meet her?" "I think we should. I think Mommy would want us to." "Okay." Emma went back to her ice cream. "Can I bring my paints, in case she wants to paint with me?" Nathan's throat tightened. "Sure, Bug. You can bring your paints." That night, Nathan couldn't sleep again. He lay in bed thinking about all the ways tomorrow could go wrong, running through scenarios and contingencies like he was planning a building project instead of a meeting in the park. Around 2 a.m, his phone buzzed with a text. "Evelyn. Can't sleep. Too nervous about tomorrow." Nathan stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Me too." "Evelyn. Is it weird that I'm terrified of meeting a 6-year-old? Nathan. She's pretty terrifying, very opinionated about which Disney princess is best. Evelyn, please tell me it's not Elsa. Everyone picks Elsa. Nathan. Moana, actually. Emma says Elsa's powers are cool, but Moana's braver. Evelyn, smart kid. Nathan. She's like her mom that way. There was a long pause before Evelyn's next message appeared. Evelyn, thank you for giving me this chance. I know it's not easy, Nathan. Nothing about this is easy. But I think we're doing the right thing, Evelyn. I hope so. Nathan, get some sleep. See you tomorrow. Evelyn, you too. Nathan set his phone down and closed his eyes. And for the first time in weeks, he actually managed to fall asleep without lying awake for hours replaying everything in his mind. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of perfect weather that felt almost cruel in its beauty. Clear blue sky, warm sun, gentle breeze. Emma insisted on wearing her favorite yellow dress, the one with the sunflowers on it that Olivia had bought her for her 5th birthday. Nathan didn't have the heart to tell her to choose something else. They got to the park at 2 o'clock. Evelyn was already there, sitting on a bench near the playground, wearing jeans and a simple blue shirt. She looked more nervous than Nathan had ever seen her, which was somehow comforting. When she saw them approaching, she stood. Emma grabbed Nathan's hand tighter. It's okay, Nathan murmured. Take your time. They walked over slowly. Evelyn stayed where she was, letting them come to her. And then Emma stopped about 5 feet away and just stared. Nathan's heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. Hi, Emma, Evelyn said softly. I'm Evelyn. Emma didn't say anything. She just kept staring. Emma didn't say anything. Her small hand squeezing Nathan so hard it hurt. Then, in a very quiet voice, You look like my mommy. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. I know. Your mommy and I had the same biological mother. That's why we look alike. Are you sad that she died? Very sad. Me too. Shit. The simple exchange broke something open in Nathan's chest. Emma let go of his hand and took a tentative step forward. Did you know my mommy? Only for a little while, but she told me all about you. She said you love painting and you're really good at it. Emma brightened. I brought my paints. Daddy said I could in case you wanted to paint with me. I would love to paint with you. And just like that, the ice was broken. Emma led Evelyn over to the picnic table where Nathan had already set up her paint supplies, chattering about her favorite colors and the picture she was planning to make. Evelyn listened with complete attention, asking questions and laughing at Emma's explanations. Nathan stood a little distance away, watching his daughter interact with the woman who carried her mother's face, and he felt something shift inside him. Not healing, exactly, but maybe the beginning of whatever came after surviving. Emma painted a garden with purple flowers that looked more like blobs than actual plants, narrating every brushstroke to Evelyn, like she was documenting a masterpiece for a museum. Evelyn painted alongside her, creating something abstract that might have been a sunset, or might have been nothing at all, and the two of them fell into an easy rhythm that made Nathan's chest ache. He sat on the bench 20 feet away, pretending to check his phone, but really just watching, trying to figure out how he felt about any of this. Your daughter's bold with color. Evelyn called over to him, doesn't second-guess herself. She gets that from Olivia, Nathan said before he could stop himself. Emma looked up. Mommy used to paint with me before she got sick. I know, Evelyn said gently. She told me about that. She said you were her favorite painting partner. Really? Really? Emma seemed pleased by this. She went back to her painting, adding what appeared to be a very enthusiastic son in the corner. Do you like painting? I'm not very good at it, Evelyn admitted. But I like trying. That's what Mommy always said. She said trying is the important part, not being good. Nathan watched Evelyn's face as she processed this, saw the way her expression crumpled slightly before she pulled it back together. She was better at hiding her emotions than he was, but not perfect, not even close. They painted for another 20 minutes before Emma declared her masterpiece finished and demanded that both Nathan and Evelyn come admire it properly. Nathan walked over, stood next to Evelyn in front of the picnic table, and looked at his daughter's painting of a garden that looked nothing like any garden that had ever existed. It's beautiful, Bug, he said. I made it for Aunt Evelyn, Emma announced, so she can remember today. The word hit Nathan like a physical blow. Aunt. He glanced at Evelyn. She was staring at Emma with an expression he couldn't quite read. You don't have to call me that if you don't want to, Evelyn said carefully. We just met. You can call me Evelyn. But you're my mommy's sister, Emma said, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. That makes you my aunt. I guess it does. So, can I call you Aunt Evelyn? Evelyn looked at Nathan. He gave a small nod because what else was he supposed to do? Tell his daughter that family relationships were more complicated than simple biology? That just because someone shared DNA didn't mean they automatically got a title? You can call me Aunt Evelyn, Evelyn said, her voice rough. Emma beamed. Okay, do you want to go on the swings? Nathan expected Evelyn to make an excuse, to say she needed to leave or had other plans, but instead she said, I'd love to. So Nathan spent the next hour watching his daughter and his dead wife's sister play on the playground equipment like they'd known each other for years instead of less than 2 hours. Emma showed Evelyn how high she could swing, how fast she could go down the slide, how many times she could spin on the merry-go-round before getting dizzy. Evelyn participated in all of it without hesitation, laughing genuinely when Emma insisted they race to the monkey bars. Other parents at the park kept glancing over at them, and Nathan knew what they were thinking. What a nice family. Mother, father, daughter, enjoying a Saturday afternoon. Except it wasn't that. Would never be that. Around 4 o'clock, Emma started getting tired. She climbed into Nathan's lap on the bench, her hair sweaty and her cheeks flushed, and announced she was hungry. We should probably head home, Nathan said to Evelyn, who'd sat down on the other end of the bench, maintaining a careful distance. Of course. Emma sat up. Can Aunt Evelyn come have dinner with us? Nathan's stomach dropped. I'm sure Evelyn has other plans. I don't, actually, Evelyn said quietly. But I don't want to impose. You're not imposing, Emma insisted. Right, Daddy? Amy. Nathan looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Evelyn's carefully neutral expression. He thought about Olivia's journals, about how she'd wanted this exact thing. Evelyn integrated into their family, sharing meals and moments and ordinary time together. Right, he heard himself say. You're not imposing, whoa. So Evelyn followed them home in her own car, and Nathan tried not to think about how surreal it was to have her walking into the house Olivia had decorated, sitting at the table where Olivia used to sit, existing in spaces that still carried traces of the woman whose absence had defined the last 2 years of Nathan's life. Emma gave Evelyn a full tour of the house, narrating every room like a tiny realtor. This is the living room where we watch movies. This is the kitchen where Daddy makes pancakes, but they're not as good as Mommy's were. This is my room where I keep all my stuffed animals. Evelyn followed along, asking appropriate questions, admiring Emma's collection of art supplies and her bookshelf organized by color. When they got to the small office where Nathan kept Olivia's paintings, Emma pushed the door open without warning. This is where Daddy keeps Mommy's art. Nathan had been in the middle of pulling ingredients out of the refrigerator for dinner. He froze, listening. These are all your mother's? Evelyn's voice drifted down the hallway. Yep. Daddy says they're too special to get rid of. Nathan walked to the doorway of the office. Evelyn was standing in the center of the room, slowly turning to take in all the canvases leaning against the walls, stacked on shelves, hanging on every available surface. She was really talented, Evelyn said quietly. She was working on a series about memory when she died, and Nathan said from the doorway. Never got to finish it. Oh. Evelyn moved closer to one of the larger pieces, an abstract landscape in shades of blue and gray that Olivia had spent months on. This one's incredible. That was her favorite. Can I? Evelyn stopped herself. Never mind. What? Can I take a picture? I'd like to remember it. Nathan nodded and Evelyn pulled out her phone to photograph several of the paintings. Emma had already lost interest and wandered off to her room, leaving the 2 adults alone among Olivia's unfinished work. I didn't know she was this good, Evelyn said, putting her phone away. She mentioned she painted, but she didn't tell me she was an actual artist. She didn't think of herself that way. Always said she was just playing with color and canvas. Nathan leaned against the doorframe. There's more in the garage. Probably 50 paintings she never showed anyone. Why not? Insecurity mostly. She didn't think they were good enough. Evelyn turned to look at him. That seems to be a family trait. What do you mean? Downplaying our own abilities. not believing we're good enough. She gestured at the paintings. I do it with my work all the time. Convince myself I only got promoted because of luck or timing, not because I actually earned it. Nathan hadn't expected that level of honesty. The imposter syndrome thing. Exactly. Evelyn walked over to another painting, this one of a woman's silhouette against a sunset. Our biological mother apparently struggled with it too, at least according to the medical history I got from the DNA website. Depression, anxiety, low self-worth. Olivia had anxiety, Nathan said. Managed it pretty well. Olivia had anxiety, Nathan, but it was always there under the surface. Me too. Started in my teens, got worse in my 20s. Evelyn traced a finger along the frame of the painting without touching the canvas. It's strange, isn't it? Having these things in common with someone you never met, like genetic echoes. They stood there in the office filled with Olivia's art, and Nathan felt the conversation shift into something more honest than anything they'd managed so far. Can I ask you something? Evelyn said. Sure. Are you angry at her? At Olivia, I mean, for not telling you about me before she died? Nathan had been expecting a lot of questions, but not that one. He thought about it, really thought about it. No, he said finally. I was at first. When I found the journals, I felt betrayed that she'd kept something so important from me. But then I read more of what she wrote, and I understood. She was scared. She didn't know how to integrate this huge new thing into a life that was already complicated. And she thought she had time. Besides, he paused. We all think we have more time than we do. Evelyn nodded, her eyes bright. I'm angry at her sometimes, for dying before we could really know each other, for finding me and then disappearing before we figured out what we were supposed to be to each other. That's fair. Is it, being angry at a dead person? I think grief gets to be whatever it needs to be. Evelyn wiped her eyes quickly. Sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional. You're allowed to get emotional. I'm usually better at controlling it. Yeah, well, I'm usually better at a lot of things. Emma's voice called from the kitchen. Daddy, I'm hungry. Nathan pushed off from the doorframe. I should start dinner. Fair warning, I'm not a great cook. We're probably having spaghetti because it's one of the 3 things I can make without burning down the house. Spaghetti sounds perfect. Dinner was awkward at first, the 3 of them sitting around the table in the strange configuration of almost family. But Emma filled the silences with her constant chatter about school and her friend Sophie, and how her teacher Mrs. Patterson had a fish tank with 17 fish that all had names. Evelyn asked questions and laughed in the right places and seemed genuinely interested in a 6-year-old's rambling stories. Nathan watched them interact and tried to figure out what he was feeling. Not resentment, which surprised him. Not even the sharp pain he'd expected from seeing Evelyn at Olivia's place at the table. Just a strange, tentative sense that maybe this could work. Maybe Olivia had been right to want this. After dinner, Emma insisted on showing Evelyn her entire collection of paintings from school, which numbered in the dozens and were all proudly displayed on the refrigerator in the walls of her room. Evelyn examined each one seriously, asking about Emma's color choices and her inspiration. This one's my family, Emma said, pointing to a painting of 3 stick figures. That's Daddy, that's me, and that's Mommy in heaven. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. That's beautiful, Emma. Do you have a family? The question was innocent, but Nathan saw Evelyn flinch slightly. Not really, Evelyn said. I was adopted when I was little, but my adoptive parents died in a car accident when I was 19. I don't have any siblings except... She stopped. Except your mom was my half-sister. So you're alone? Most of the time, yeah. Emma considered this with a seriousness beyond her years. Then she took Evelyn's hand. You're not alone anymore. You have us now. Nathan watched Evelyn's face crumple and reform, watched her struggle to maintain composure in front of his daughter, who just offered the kind of uncomplicated acceptance that adults spent years unlearning. Thank you, Evelyn managed. That means a lot to me. And by the time 8 o'clock rolled around, Emma was yawning and ready for bed. Nathan started the bedtime routine while Evelyn waited downstairs. And when he came back down 30 minutes later after reading 3 stories and negotiating Emma's delaying tactics, he found Evelyn washing the dinner dishes. "You don't have to do that," he said. "I wanted to." She rinsed a plate and set it in the drying rack. "Emma's wonderful, by the way. You're doing an amazing job with her." "Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping it together. That's parenting, from what I understand." "You understand correctly." Nathan grabbed a dish towel and started drying. "She really took to you. The feeling's mutual." Evelyn handed him another plate. "I wasn't expecting that. I thought maybe she'd be scared of me because I look like Olivia, or that it would be too confusing." Kids are weird. They adapt to impossible things faster than adults do. They finished the dishes in companionable silence. When the last plate was dried and put away, Evelyn checked her watch. "I should probably go," she said. "It's getting late." Nathan knew he should agree, should walk her to the door and thank her for coming, and that would be that. Instead, he heard himself say, "Do you want coffee? I know it's late, but I'm not tired yet, and I thought maybe we could talk about Olivia, about all of this." Evelyn looked surprised. "Are you sure?" "No, but I think we should anyway." So they ended up on the back porch with 2 cups of coffee that neither of them really wanted, sitting in the wooden chairs Nathan had built the summer before Olivia died, back when he still had energy for projects like that. "Tell me about Boston," Nathan said. "The weekend you two spent together. I read Olivia's version, but I want to hear yours." Evelyn wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. "It was surreal. We met at this coffee shop in the North End, and I remember sitting there waiting for her, trying to prepare myself to meet someone who was genetically related to me, but essentially a stranger. And then she walked in and it was like looking in a mirror 20 years from now." "That must have been jarring." "Terrifying, actually. I almost left before she saw me." Evelyn smiled slightly. "But she spotted me right away and came over and just hugged me. Didn't say anything, just hugged me like we'd known each other our whole lives. And I remember thinking, this is what it feels like to have a sister." Nathan took a sip of coffee. It had already gone cold. "We spent the whole day just walking and talking," Evelyn continued. "She told me about growing up in foster care before being adopted at 8. I told her about my experience being adopted at 6. We compared notes on what it was like always feeling slightly disconnected from our adoptive families, always wondering where we really came from. Olivia never talked about that with me," Nathan admitted. "The disconnection thing. She always said she was lucky to have been adopted by good people." "She was, but lucky doesn't mean uncomplicated." Evelyn set her mug down on the porch railing. "We found out we both had this thing where we hoarded relationships, collected friends and kept them close because we never fully believed anyone would stay. We both overthought everything because we'd learned early that the world wasn't predictable or safe." Nathan thought about all the times Olivia had apologized for things that didn't need apologies, all the ways she'd tried to make herself easier to love, all the anxiety that lived just underneath her bright personality. "She told me about you," Evelyn said, "about how you met at some terrible college party, where everyone was playing beer pong and you were the only person there reading a book about architecture. She said she liked that you were serious, that you felt solid in a way most people didn't. I was boring. You were stable. That mattered to her." They sat in silence for a while, the night air cooling around them. "Can I tell you something that's going to sound terrible?" Nathan said. "Okay. Sometimes I'm so angry at her for dying that I can barely breathe. Not rational anger, not the kind where I can logic my way through it. Just this huge, overwhelming rage that she left me alone to figure out how to be a single father and how to explain death to a 4-year-old and how to keep existing in a world where she doesn't." Evelyn didn't look shocked. "That doesn't sound terrible." "No? No, it sounds honest." She paused. "I'm angry too. At Olivia, at the universe, at every random factor that had to align perfectly for her to die at exactly that moment. If she'd made pancakes an hour later, if she'd stood in a different spot in the kitchen, if her heart had been just slightly stronger. It doesn't help to think like that. I know, but I do it anyway." Nathan leaned back in his chair and looked up at the sky. Too much light pollution to see many stars, but a few bright ones pushed through anyway. "The hardest part," he said, "is that I'm starting to forget things, small things." The exact way she laughed at her own jokes before she even got to the punchline. The sound of her singing in the shower. The way she organized the pantry with all the labels facing forward. He stopped. Emma said she can't remember what Olivia's voice sounds like anymore. She's 6 years old and she's already forgetting her mother. That's not forgetting, Evelyn said gently. That's just how memory works. The sharp edges soften. The details blur. It doesn't mean Emma loved her any less. I know, but it feels like losing her all over again. Yeah, it does. They sat there with that truth between them, and Nathan realized this was the first time since Olivia died that he'd talked to someone who understood. Marcus tried. Linda tried. The grief counselor definitely tried, but none of them had loved Olivia. None of them carried the same specific loss. But Evelyn did. Evelyn had spent 2 years grieving a sister she'd barely known, mourning all the conversations they'd never have, and the relationship they'd never build, and the family connection that had been snatched away before it could solidify into something real. I have something to show you, Nathan said abruptly. Wait here, shut it. He went inside, climbed the stairs to the office, and pulled out the box where he kept the things of Olivia's. He couldn't quite figure out what to do with. Photos that didn't fit in albums, jewelry she rarely wore, receipts for meaningful dates, and at the very bottom, a small leather notebook he'd found in her purse after she died. He brought it back out to the porch and handed it to Evelyn. What is this? She asked. A list Olivia was making, things she wanted to do with you. I found it a few months after she died, and I couldn't read it without falling apart, so I put it away. Evelyn opened the notebook carefully. Inside, in Olivia's handwriting, was a list titled Adventures with Evelyn. I mustn't. Visit the art museum in Raleigh. Show her Emma's favorite playground. Cook dinner together and figure out if we both inherited Mom's terrible cooking skills or if one of us got lucky. Go through old photos and piece together what we know about our biological family. Let her teach me about business, and I'll teach her about art. Introduce her to Nathan properly. Maybe over coffee so it's low pressure. Have a sister's day where we do something completely frivolous like get our nails done or see a terrible movie. Make sure she knows she's part of this family now, not just a genetic connection. Evelyn read it twice, her hands shaking slightly. She really wanted this, she said, her voice rough. She did. And now she's gone, and none of it will happen. Nathan took a deep breath. Maybe we could do them anyway. Evelyn looked up at him. What? The list. Maybe we could do the things Olivia wanted to do with you. Not all of them, maybe. And not in the same way. But Emma would probably love to show you her favorite playground, and we could definitely go to the art museum in Raleigh. Nathan surprised himself with how much he meant it. Olivia wanted you to be part of our family. Maybe we should honor that. Nathan, you don't have to. I'm not suggesting this because I think I have to. I'm suggesting it because I think it might help, both of us. He paused. Grief is lonely. I've been doing it alone for 2 years. And you've been doing it alone for 2 years, and maybe we don't have to anymore. Evelyn was crying now, not bothering to hide it. I don't want to be a replacement for her. You're not. You couldn't be, even if you tried. Nathan felt something loosen in his chest as he said it. But you are her sister. You are Emma's aunt. And if we're both going to carry around this massive loss for the rest of our lives, maybe we could carry it together sometimes instead of separately. Evelyn wiped her eyes. This is probably a terrible idea. Most of my ideas are terrible these days. What if it makes everything harder? Then we'll deal with it. We're both pretty good at dealing with hard things by now. Evelyn laughed through her tears. That's true. They sat there for a while longer, not talking, just existing in the same space with the same grief, and the tentative possibility that maybe, eventually, it could evolve into something else. When Evelyn finally left around 11, Nathan stood in the doorway and watched her car pull away, and he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not happiness, exactly, but not the crushing weight of survival either. Maybe something in between. The next morning at work, the carefully constructed distance Nathan had been maintaining started to crack. Word had somehow gotten around that the new CEO and the senior architect had some kind of connection, though the rumor mill hadn't quite figured out what it was. Marcus cornered Nathan in the break room. Janet from accounting said she saw you leaving a coffee shop with Hart last week. And then someone else said they saw you at the park together on Saturday. People are starting to talk. People should mind their own business. You know that's not how offices work. Marcus lowered his voice. Are you two? No, definitely not. Then what? Piss. Nathan poured coffee he didn't want just to have something to do with his hands. She's Olivia's half-sister. They met a few weeks before Olivia died. I didn't know about it until recently. Marcus's eyes went wide. Holy shit. Yeah. That's why she looks like, yep. And you're what? Building a relationship with her now? Nathan hadn't really thought of it in those terms, but that's exactly what was happening. Something like that. Does Emma know? Eat. Emma's the one who invited her to dinner. Called her Aunt Evelyn within an hour of meeting her. Marcus let out a low whistle. Kids are wild. Tell me about it. Later that afternoon, Nathan got summoned to Linda's office. He knew what was coming before he even walked through the door. We need to talk about your relationship with the CEO, Linda said without preamble. There's no relationship. Nathan, people are noticing. People are asking questions. And in any other situation, I wouldn't care who you spent your personal time with, but this is the CEO we're talking about. There are optics to consider. Nathan sat down heavily. She's Olivia's sister, half-sister. They found each other through a DNA registry before Olivia died. Linda's expression shifted from stern to shocked. What? Olivia never got to tell me about it, never got to introduce us. And then Evelyn took the CEO position here, and I found out when I walked into that first meeting and saw her face. That's... Linda stopped, started again. That's incredibly complicated. I'm aware. Are you two involved romantically? No, absolutely not. But you're spending time together. She's Emma's aunt. Emma wants to know her, and Olivia wanted her to be part of our family. Nathan met Linda's eyes. I'm not going to cut her out just because it's complicated. Linda was quiet for a long moment. Okay, but you need to be careful. If the board gets wind of any hint of impropriety, they're going to investigate. And investigations are messy, even when there's nothing to find. We're not doing anything wrong. I know that. But perception matters, especially in a corporate environment. Linda softened slightly. I'm not saying don't see her. I'm saying be discreet. Don't give people ammunition to create narratives that aren't true. Nathan left her office feeling frustrated and defensive, and also knowing she was right. Offices thrived on gossip, and the story of the widowed architect getting close to the CEO, who looked exactly like his dead wife, was too juicy for people to ignore. He texted Evelyn, "We need to talk about work stuff." Her response came immediately. "My office in 20?" When Nathan walked into Evelyn's office 20 minutes later, she was standing by the window again, the same position she'd been in the first time they'd had a real conversation. "Linda talked to you," she said before he could speak. "How did you know?" Because my assistant mentioned that people have been asking questions about why the CEO and a senior architect have been having private meetings." Evelyn turned to face him. "We knew this would happen eventually. I just didn't think it would happen this fast." "Welcome to corporate politics." Evelyn crossed her arms. "What do you want to do?" Nathan had been thinking about this all afternoon. We can't hide that we know each other. That would be worse if it came out later. But we also can't announce the full truth because it's nobody's business. Agreed. So we tell the truth, just not all of it. You knew Olivia. You met her before she died. When you took the position here, you reached out to me because you wanted to offer condolences and support. Emma and I welcomed the connection because Olivia cared about you. Evelyn nodded slowly. That's actually true. Just missing the biological sister part, which we don't owe anyone. Won't people wonder why we look so similar? Some people look similar. It happens. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. We just need to be professional at work. No private meetings unless they're actually about work. No coffee shops where coworkers might see us. Nothing that gives anyone ammunition. And outside of work, outside of work, you're Emma's aunt. That doesn't change. Evelyn looked relieved. Okay, we can do this. Can we? We don't have a choice. 2 days later, the email went out from HR. A brief, professional message explaining that CEO Evelyn Hart and senior architect Nathan Reed had a pre-existing personal connection through Nathan's late wife, and that any projects involving both parties would be subject to standard oversight protocols to prevent conflicts of interest. Nothing inappropriate, nothing scandalous, just a simple disclosure. The gossip didn't stop, but it shifted. Instead of speculation about an affair, people started speculating about what personal connection meant. Nathan ignored it all and focused on his work. Evelyn did the same, but on Friday afternoon, Nathan's phone buzzed with a text from her. Emma's favorite playground, tomorrow at 10? Nathan looked at the message for a long time before responding. See you then. Saturday morning arrived with rain, because of course it did. Nathan texted Evelyn to suggest rescheduling, but she responded, "Rain never stopped Olivia from doing anything. Let's go anyway." So Nathan bundled Emma into her rain boots and jacket, packed an umbrella, and drove to the playground where they'd spent hundreds of mornings when Emma was younger, back when Olivia was alive and weekend mornings felt like gifts instead of endurance tests. Evelyn was already there, standing under a tree with her own umbrella, looking uncertain. Emma ran ahead, splashing in every puddle on the way. "Aunt Evelyn, you came!" "Of course I came." Evelyn smiled at Nathan as he caught up. Though I'm starting to wonder if this was one of Olivia's better ideas. She loved rain, Nathan said. Nathan used to drag us out in worse weather than this just to jump in puddles. Emma was already demonstrating this family tradition, leaping into a particularly large puddle with enough force to splash water 3 feet in every direction. They spent an hour at the playground in the rain, watching Emma play and occasionally joining in when she demanded races or pushing on the swings. Other parents looked at them like they were crazy, choosing to be outside in this weather, but Nathan didn't care. This was one of Olivia's adventures, one of the things she'd wanted to share with her sister. And somehow, doing it made Olivia feel closer instead of further away. Afterward, they went to the diner Olivia used to love, the one with the terrible coffee and the amazing pancakes. Emma ordered chocolate chip pancakes and ate them while narrating a story about her stuffed animals. Nathan ordered eggs and tried not to think about how many times he'd sat in this exact booth with Olivia across from him instead of Evelyn. This was her favorite table, Evelyn said quietly, like she could read his mind. Nathan looked at her. How did you know? She told me. During our weekend in Boston, she talked about this place, about bringing Emma here for Saturday breakfast. Said the corner booth had the best light. Nathan glanced at the window. She was right. Late morning sun coming through at just the right angle to make everything look softer, kinder. You know what I'm realizing? Evelyn said. What? Doing these things from her list isn't making me sadder. It's making me feel like I'm getting to know her better, like I'm meeting her through the things she loved. Well, Nathan understood exactly what she meant. Yeah, me too. Emma finished her pancakes and demanded to know what they were doing next, and Nathan realized that somewhere in the past few weeks, this had stopped feeling like an obligation and started feeling like something else. Not a replacement for what was lost, but maybe a new thing that could exist alongside the grief. Something Olivia would have wanted. Something that, despite everything, felt almost right. Over the next 6 weeks, Evelyn became a regular presence in their lives in a way that should have felt intrusive, but somehow didn't. She came to dinner most Fridays, helped Emma with a school project about family trees that required creative explanations, and even showed up to Emma's first-grade music concert where 23 children murdered Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on recorders that were somehow all in different keys. Nathan watched from the audience as Evelyn sat next to him, wincing at the same off-key notes he was wincing at, and he thought about how Olivia would have loved this, would have recorded the whole thing on her phone despite the terrible acoustics, would have applauded louder than anyone else, would have insisted they celebrate with ice cream afterward, even though Emma's performance had lasted less than 4 minutes. They got ice cream anyway. That was really something, Evelyn said diplomatically as they sat outside the ice cream shop, Emma happily working on a cone nearly as big as her head. That's one word for it, Nathan said. I think enthusiastic might be another. Emma looked up, chocolate ice cream smeared across her face. Did you like my song, Aunt Evelyn? I loved it. You were very focused. Mrs. Patterson said I was one of the best ones. Mrs. Patterson is very kind, Nathan murmured, earning him a look from Evelyn that was trying very hard not to be amused. This was becoming familiar, these moments of casual domesticity that shouldn't have worked but did. Evelyn fitting into the gaps in their lives without trying to fill the Olivia-shaped hole that would always be there. She was different from Olivia in important ways. More reserved, more corporate, less spontaneously creative. She couldn't paint worth a damn, and had never successfully made pancakes without burning them, two things Olivia had excelled at. But she showed up, consistently, without making Nathan feel like he owed her anything for it. At work, they maintained the professional distance Linda had recommended. Brief, courteous interactions and meetings. Emails that were strictly business. No closed-door conversations unless absolutely necessary. It was Marcus who noticed the change in Nathan first. "You seem different," he said one afternoon, dropping by Nathan's office uninvited as usual. "Less like you're constantly one bad day away from falling apart." Nathan looked up from the Morrison schematics he'd been revising for the third time. "I'm fine." "That's what I mean. You're saying you're fine, and I actually believe you this time." Marcus settled into the chair across from Nathan's desk. "It's the sister thing, isn't it? Having Evelyn around is helping." Nathan wasn't sure helping was the right word. "It's different having someone who knew Olivia, who misses her too." "Different good or different weird?" "Both." Nathan set down his pencil. "Emma loves her. That's the main thing. Emma needed more family in her life, and now she has an aunt who actually wants to be around." "And what do you need?" "Look." It was a question Nathan had been avoiding asking himself. "I don't know yet." Marcus studied him with that particular expression that meant he was about to say something Nathan probably didn't want to hear. "You know people are still talking, right? About you and Hart." "I figured." "Some of the speculation is getting pretty creative. Janet heard from someone in legal that they think you two are secretly dating and using the dead wife connection as a cover story." Nathan felt his jaw tighten. "That's ridiculous." Nathan felt, "I know that. You know that. But corporate gossip doesn't run on facts." Marcus leaned forward. "I'm not saying you should care what people think. I'm just saying be careful. The board's always looking for reasons to shuffle management, and if they decide there's any hint of impropriety." "There isn't." "I know. But politics aren't about truth. They're about perception." Quote. After Marcus left, Nathan sat at his desk staring at the schematics without seeing them, thinking about how impossible it was to navigate a situation that shouldn't exist in the first place. How do you explain to an entire office that your relationship with the CEO is complicated in ways that have nothing to do with romance and everything to do with grief and family and a dead woman's unfinished dreams? You couldn't, so you didn't try. That evening, Nathan got home to find a message from Emma's school. Could he come in tomorrow for a parent-teacher conference? Nothing urgent, just wanted to discuss Emma's progress. The conference turns out to be less about progress and more about concern. Mrs. Patterson, a veteran teacher with the kind of gentle firmness that came from 20 years of managing 6-year-olds, sat across from Nathan in her classroom decorated with alphabet posters and student artwork. Emma's doing well academically, she started, which Nathan knew meant a but was coming. However, I've noticed she's been talking a lot about her aunt recently. Aunt Evelyn. Nathan waited. She mentions her constantly. Aunt Evelyn took her to the park. Aunt Evelyn helped with her homework. Aunt Evelyn came to her concert. Mrs. Patterson paused. I'm not concerned exactly, but I wanted to check in. Emma's been through a lot with losing her mother. I want to make sure she's not attaching to this new person in an unhealthy way. Nathan felt defensive rise up in his chest. Evelyn is Emma's biological aunt. She's family. I understand that, and I think it's wonderful that Emma has extended family in her life. I'm just suggesting we monitor how much Emma is depending on that relationship emotionally. Sometimes children who've experienced loss can become fixated on new attachment figures. Nathan knew Mrs. Patterson meant well. He also knew she was at least partially right. Emma had latched onto Evelyn with an intensity that sometimes worried him too. I'll keep an eye on it, he said. That's all I'm asking. Mrs. Patterson smiled. Emma's a resilient kid. She just needs adults who are watching out for her. That night, after Emma was asleep, Nathan found himself standing in the office looking at Olivia's paintings again. He'd been doing this more often lately, coming in here when he needed to think, surrounded by her unfinished work. His phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. Emma invited me to her soccer game Saturday. Is that okay with you? Nathan stared at the message. Emma hadn't mentioned inviting Evelyn, hadn't asked Nathan's permission, Just assumed it would be fine because Aunt Evelyn came to things now. He typed, "Of course it's okay." Then deleted it and wrote, "Can we talk? Not about work." Evelyn's response came after a minute. "I can come over. Give me 20 minutes." Nathan went downstairs, made coffee he didn't want, and tried to figure out what he was actually feeling. By the time Evelyn's car pulled into the driveway, he still hadn't figured it out. She looked worried when he opened the door. "Is everything okay? Is Emma okay?" "Emma's fine. She's asleep." Nathan stepped back to let Evelyn in. "I just needed to talk to you about something." They ended up on the back porch again, the same spot where they'd had most of their important conversations. It was becoming their place, which was both comforting and strange. "Emma's teacher pulled me in today," Nathan said without preamble. "She's concerned about how attached Emma is getting to you." Evelyn's face fell. "Oh, She talks about you constantly, apparently. At school, at home. You've become the central figure in her life in a really short amount of time." Nathan ran a hand through his hair. "And I don't think that's bad necessarily, but it made me realize we've never actually talked about what this is. What you want from this relationship with Emma. What do you mean? I mean, are you planning to stay in Charlotte? To keep being part of Emma's life long term? Or is this temporary until you get bored or get a better job offer somewhere else?" Nathan heard the edge in his voice and couldn't quite control it. "Because Emma's already lost one important person. I can't let her get attached to another one who's going to disappear." Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was careful. "Is that what you think? That I'm going to disappear?" "I don't know what to think. We've been doing this for 2 months. 2 months isn't a relationship. It's barely a trial period. Nathan, I'm not going anywhere." "You can't promise that." Can anyone promise anything?" Evelyn leaned forward. "My adoptive parents died when I was 19. I know exactly what it's like to lose people you thought would be permanent. I would never do that to Emma intentionally. But life happens. Jobs happen. Opportunities happen. You're right, they do." Evelyn met his eyes. "So let me be very clear. I took this CEO position knowing it was in Charlotte. I took it partially because it was a good career move, and partially because this city is where Olivia lived and died, and I wanted to feel close to her somehow. But the reason I'm staying is because I have a niece here who I love, and a brother-in-law who's become something close to a friend. And for the first time in my adult life, I actually have family." Nathan wanted to believe her. Also didn't want to believe her because believing meant risk, and risk meant potential devastation. "Emma invited you to her soccer game without asking me first," he said. "I know. She texted me from your phone while you were in the shower, apparently. Very sneaky." Despite everything, Nathan almost smiled. "She's getting too smart." "She's Olivia's daughter. Of course she is." Evelyn paused. "If you don't want me to come to the game, I won't. If you want me to pull back and give Emma some space, I can do that too. But Nathan, you need to tell me what you actually want, because I'm trying to navigate this blind and I don't want to mess it up." Nathan looked at her sitting there in the porch light. Nathan looked at her, looking so much like Olivia, but sounding nothing like her, and he realized the problem wasn't that he didn't trust Evelyn. The problem was that he was starting to depend on her, and that terrified him. "I want you to come to the soccer game," he heard himself say. "Emma would be devastated if you didn't." "And what do you want?" The question hung in the air between them. "I don't know," Nathan admitted. "I'm still figuring it out." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Okay, that's fair. Assault." Saturday arrived with perfect soccer weather, sunny but not too hot, a light breeze to keep things comfortable. Emma's team, the Purple Dolphins, was playing against the Green Tigers, and Emma was vibrating with excitement about the whole thing. Evelyn showed up 10 minutes before the game started, carrying a cooler that turned out to be full of orange slices and juice boxes. "I Googled what to bring to kids' soccer games," she explained when Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You didn't have to do that. I wanted to." She looked around at the field, at the cluster of parents setting up camp chairs, and the kids warming up in their mismatched uniforms. "I've never been to a kids' soccer game before. I have no idea what the rules are." The rules are there are no rules. Mostly they just chase the ball in a giant cluster, and occasionally someone kicks it in vaguely the right direction. Isat sich arshum martachams. Evelyn laughed, and Emma came running over, her purple jersey already grass-stained even though the game hadn't started. Aunt Evelyn, you came! Of course I came. I wouldn't miss it. Evelyn held up the cooler. I brought snacks for halftime. Emma hugged her fiercely, then ran back to join her team. Nathan and Evelyn set up their chairs on the sideline along with the other parents. Nathan recognized most of them: Sophie's mom, Tyler's dad, various other families from school and the neighborhood. They were all looking at Evelyn with obvious curiosity. Sophie's mom, Jennifer, came over during warm-ups. Hi, Nathan. I don't think we've met your friend. Nathan felt Evelyn tense slightly beside him. This is Evelyn. She's Emma's aunt. Oh, I didn't know Emma had an aunt in the area. Jennifer's smile was friendly, but her eyes were calculating. Are you visiting? I live in Charlotte, Evelyn said smoothly. I just moved here a few months ago. How nice that you're close by now. Emma must love having more family around. The conversation was perfectly pleasant and absolutely exhausting. Nathan could see Jennifer filing away information, already planning how to present it to the other moms. By Monday, everyone at school would know that Emma's aunt had mysteriously appeared and looked suspiciously like Nathan's dead wife. The game started and provided a welcome distraction. Emma played defense, which mostly meant standing in the general area of the goal and occasionally running after the ball when it came near her. She wasn't particularly good at soccer, but she was enthusiastic, and that counted for something. She's very focused, Evelyn observed after Emma successfully kicked the ball away from an opposing player. She gets that from Olivia. Once she decided she wanted to play soccer, there was no talking her out of it, even though she'd never shown any interest in sports before. Why did she decide to play? Sophie started playing. Emma wanted to do everything Sophie did. Nathan watched his daughter chase the ball across the field. I tried to explain that she didn't have to do something just because her friend was doing it, but she insisted. That's actually kind of sweet. It's expensive is what it is. Have you seen how much kids' soccer equipment costs? They fell into comfortable conversation, commenting on the game and the other kids and the referee, who was clearly just someone's dad who'd been volunteered against his will. It felt normal in a way Nathan hadn't expected, sitting here with Evelyn watching Emma play, just like dozens of other parents watching their kids. Except it wasn't normal, because Evelyn wasn't Emma's mother, and the people who kept glancing over at them were definitely wondering what their deal was. At halftime, Emma ran over for orange slices and declared she'd definitely almost scored a goal, which was a generous interpretation of her having kicked the ball in the general direction of the goal from about 20 feet away. You're doing great, Bug, Nathan said. Are you watching? Aunt Evelyn? Every second. You're very fast. Emma beamed and ran back to rejoin her team. She didn't come anywhere near scoring a goal, did she? Evelyn said quietly. Not even close. But we're going to tell her she did great anyway. Welcome to parenting. The second half was more of the same, chaotic, enthusiastic, and barely resembling actual soccer. The Purple Dolphins lost 4-2, but Emma didn't seem to care. She was just happy to have played. Afterward, Evelyn helped pack up the chairs while Nathan corralled Emma and her post-game energy. Several other parents came over to say goodbye, each one finding a reason to be introduced to Evelyn, each one clearly filing away the information for later discussion. Nathan could feel the weight of their speculation, could practically hear the conversations that would happen later. Did you see how much she looked like his wife? Do you think something's going on there? Poor Emma, losing her mother, and now having to deal with whatever complicated thing her father's gotten himself into. You okay? Evelyn asked quietly as they walked to the parking lot. Fine. You don't look fine. I'm just tired of people staring. Evelyn glanced around at the dispersing crowd. They're curious. It's natural. It's annoying. That too. They were loading the chairs into Nathan's car when Jennifer approached with Sophie in tow. Emma, Sophie wanted to know if you can come over for a play date next weekend? Emma looked at Nathan with such hopeful eyes that he couldn't have said no even if he wanted to. Sure. Saturday afternoon? Perfect. Jennifer turned to Evelyn. It was so nice to meet you. I hope we'll see you around more. There was something in her tone that made Nathan's shoulders tense, but Evelyn just smiled pleasantly. I'm sure you will. After Jennifer and Sophie left, Nathan finished loading the car in silence. What was that about? Evelyn asked. What was what about? That look on your face, like you wanted to tell Jennifer something but decided not to. Nathan slammed the trunk closed harder than necessary. I'm just sick of having to explain our relationship to people who wouldn't understand it anyway. So don't explain it. Emma's 6. She goes to school with these kids. Their parents talk, and what they say gets back to Emma, and I don't want her dealing with weird questions about why her aunt looks like her dead mom. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. Has that happened? Kids asking Emma questions? Not yet, but it will. And when it does, we'll deal with it. Evelyn's voice was firm. Nathan, we can't control what other people think or say. All we can do is make sure Emma knows the truth and feels secure in it. The truth is complicated. Most important truths are. Emma came running over, interrupting the conversation. Can we get ice cream? The Tigers got ice cream and we should get ice cream too, even though we lost. Nathan was about to say no. They'd had ice cream twice this week already, but Evelyn spoke first. Ice cream sounds perfect. My treat. So they ended up at the same ice cream shop they always went to. Emma chattering about the game and her friend Sophie, and how next time she was definitely going to score a real goal. Evelyn listened with genuine interest, asking questions and offering encouragement, and Nathan watched the two of them interact and felt something complicated unfold in his chest. This was what Olivia had wanted, this exact scene, Emma with her aunt building a relationship, creating memories. Olivia had dreamed of family dinners and soccer games and ordinary moments that added up to something meaningful. And it was happening, just without her. The thought should have made Nathan sad. Instead, it made him feel something closer to grateful. That night, after Emma was asleep and Evelyn had gone home, Nathan went back to Olivia's journals. He'd been reading them sporadically over the past few months, slowly working through her thoughts and fears and dreams. He found an entry from about 3 weeks before she died. I told my therapist today that I'm afraid of introducing Evelyn to my family, not because I think it will go badly, but because I think it might go too well. What if Nathan likes her better than he likes me? What if Emma bonds with her in ways she hasn't bonded with me? I know that's irrational. I know it's my own insecurity talking. But I can't shake this feeling that inviting Evelyn into our lives means risking everything I've built. Dr. Chen said that's not how love works, that there's not a finite amount of it, and adding people to your circle doesn't diminish the love that's already there. It just expands the circle. I want to believe that. I want to believe that having a sister will make our family bigger and better and more complete. I want to believe that Emma will benefit from having an aunt who can teach her things I can't teach her, who can be there for her in ways I might not always be able to be there. I want to believe all of that, but I'm still scared. Nathan closed the journal and sat in the dark office, thinking about Olivia's fear and how it had never had a chance to be resolved. She died before she could introduce Evelyn to her family, before she could see that Dr. Chen was right. Love did expand to fit new people. Emma loved Evelyn without it diminishing her love for her mother. And Nathan. Nathan wasn't sure what he felt, but it wasn't diminishment either. It was different, complicated, something that didn't have a clean name. His phone buzzed with a text. Marcus. Board meeting Monday. Word is they're going to bring up the situation with you and Hart. Linda's trying to shut it down, but you should be prepared. Nathan stared at the message, feeling something cold settle in his stomach. He'd known this was coming, had known since that first conversation with Linda that the board would eventually notice and eventually care. Corporate politics didn't allow for nuanced situations. Everything had to fit into neat categories, appropriate or inappropriate, professional or unprofessional. And what Nathan had with Evelyn fit into none of those categories. He texted back, "Thanks for the heads up." Then he texted Evelyn, "We might have a problem at work, board meeting Monday." Her response came immediately. "I know. My assistant warned me. We'll handle it." Nathan wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe they could walk into a boardroom and explain the unexplainable and have it be accepted. But he'd been navigating impossible situations long enough to know that wanting something and getting it were two entirely different things. Monday morning arrived cold and gray, matching Nathan's mood perfectly. He dressed carefully, choosing his most professional suit, and drove to work trying to mentally prepare for whatever was coming. The board meeting was scheduled for 10. Nathan wasn't invited, but Linda pulled him aside at 9:30 to prepare him. "They're going to ask about your relationship with Hart," she said bluntly. "Specifically, whether it's romantic and whether it constitutes a conflict of interest given her position." "It's not romantic. I know that. But you're going to need to convince them. And Nathan, they're not going to be satisfied with 'it's complicated.'" "What do you want me to say?" "The truth. She's your late wife's half-sister. You're co-parenting your daughter who happens to be her niece. You have a familial relationship that predates her employment here. It's all documentable, all explainable, all completely above board. Will they believe that?" Linda's expression was grim. "I don't know, but it's the best shot we have. But she is quasi ko chages." At 10:15, Nathan got called into the boardroom. Evelyn was already there, sitting at the far end of the long table, her expression perfectly controlled. Nathan took a seat next to her, and they both faced the 7 board members who held their professional futures in their hands. Richard Knowles, the board chairman, started the meeting. "Thank you both for coming. I'll get straight to the point. There have been concerns raised about the nature of your relationship and whether it constitutes a conflict of interest given Ms. Hart's position as CEO and Mr. Reed's position as senior architect." Nathan felt Evelyn tense beside him, though her expression didn't change. "We understand the concern," Evelyn said calmly, "but I can assure you our relationship is entirely familial and in no way impacts our professional judgment." "Can you explain what you mean by familial?" This from Patricia Morrison, one of the older board members who Nathan vaguely remembered from company events. Nathan took a breath. "My late wife, Olivia, discovered through a DNA registry that she had a biological half-sister. That sister is Evelyn. They met briefly before my wife passed away. When Evelyn took the CEO position here and we discovered we worked for the same company, we chose to maintain the family connection for the sake of my daughter, who is Evelyn's biological niece. And you expect us to believe this relationship is purely familial?" Richard's tone was skeptical. "Yes," Nathan and Evelyn said simultaneously, "despite the fact that Ms. Hart looks remarkably similar to your late wife." Nathan felt anger flash through him. "I'm aware of the resemblance. That's how genetics work when people share a biological parent." "Mr. Reed." Richard's voice hardened. "I understand this is personal, but we have a responsibility to ensure there are no conflicts of interest in our leadership structure." "There aren't any," Evelyn said firmly. "Nathan and I have been scrupulous about maintaining professional boundaries at work. Any projects we're both involved in have been subject to standard oversight. We've disclosed our relationship to HR. We've done everything by the book, except continue a personal relationship outside of work," Patricia said. "A familial relationship," Evelyn corrected. "I'm my niece's aunt. That's not going to change regardless of where I work or what policies you implement." The board members exchanged glances. Nathan could see the calculation happening, the weighing of risk versus reward, the question of whether this situation was worth the potential scandal. Finally, Richard spoke. "We're going to need documentation, proof of the biological relationship, written statements about the timeline of when you discovered you worked together, a full disclosure of any projects where you've collaborated." "You'll have all of that by end of day," Evelyn said, "and we'll be implementing additional oversight measures. Any project involving both of you will require approval from 2 additional senior architects before moving forward. Any performance reviews or promotions will be handled by external consultants to avoid bias." Nathan felt the restrictions like chains. This was what happened when you tried to fit an impossible situation into corporate boxes. You got monitored and restricted and treated like you'd done something wrong, even when you hadn't. "Is that acceptable, Richard asked. "Yes," Evelyn said. Nathan wanted to say no, wanted to stand up and tell them all exactly what they could do with their oversight measures and their suspicions, and their refusal to believe that 2 people could have a complicated relationship that wasn't romantic. But Emma's face flashed through his mind. Emma, who needed Nathan to keep his job so they could keep their house and their life and their stability. "Yes," Nathan said. The meeting concluded with warnings about professionalism and reminders about company policy. Nathan and Evelyn walked out together, maintaining perfect professional distance until they were alone in the elevator. Then Evelyn let out a long breath. Well, that was terrible. Yeah. Are you okay? No. Miss Nathan leaned against the elevator wall. They basically just told us we're guilty until proven innocent. They're covering their asses. That's what boards do. I hate this. I know. Evelyn's voice was tired. But we'll deal with it. We'll provide the documentation, we'll follow their rules, and eventually they'll find something else to worry about. The elevator doors opened. They stepped out into the lobby, and Nathan saw several employees quickly look away, pretending they hadn't been watching. Everyone knows, he said quietly. Probably. Emma's going to hear about it at school. Then we prepare her for that. Evelyn turned to face him. Nathan, this is hard. I know it's hard, but we're not doing anything wrong. We just have to keep reminding ourselves of that. Nathan wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that truth and righteousness would eventually win out over speculation and gossip. But he'd been living in the real world long enough to know better. That evening, he sat Emma down for a conversation he'd been dreading. Bug, I need to talk to you about something. Emma looked up from her coloring book. Am I in trouble? No, nothing like that. Nathan sat down next to her on the floor. You know how Aunt Evelyn works at the same place I do? Uh-huh. Well, some people at my work are confused about why Aunt Evelyn and I spend time together. They don't understand that she's family. Emma frowned. Why don't they understand? It's not confusing. Yes, to grown-ups it is sometimes. And some of those grown-ups might say things to other people, and those people might say things to kids at your school. What kind of things? Nathan chose his words carefully. They might ask you questions about Aunt Evelyn and me, about whether we're dating or whether we're going to get married. Emma's eyes went wide. Are you going to marry Aunt Evelyn? No, sweetheart. Aunt Evelyn is family, like how you can't marry your cousins or your siblings. She's Mommy's sister, which makes her your aunt, and that's a different kind of relationship. Emma processed this. But she looks like Mommy. I know, that confuses people sometimes. It doesn't confuse me. Nathan pulled Emma into his lap. You're smarter than most adults, Bug. But if kids at school ask you weird questions, you can just tell them Aunt Evelyn is your aunt, and that's all they need to know. Okay? Okay. Emma went back to her coloring. Daddy? Yeah? I like having Aunt Evelyn. I don't want her to go away. Nathan's chest tightened. She's not going anywhere. Promise? Nathan thought about all the promises he'd made that life had broken. Promises that Mommy would always be there. Promises that everything would be okay. But he also thought about Evelyn's face when she'd said she wasn't leaving. The way she showed up consistently, reliably, without being asked. I promise, he said, and hoped like hell it was a promise he could keep. The weeks following the board meeting were tense in ways Nathan hadn't anticipated. The additional oversight measures meant every email he sent to Evelyn got CC'd to 2 other senior architects. Every project collaboration required documentation and approval chains that turned simple conversations into bureaucratic nightmares. At work, they barely spoke beyond what was absolutely necessary. And even then, Nathan could feel people watching, waiting for some slip that would confirm whatever story they'd already decided was true. But outside of work, life continued in its new configuration. Evelyn still came to Friday dinners, still showed up to Emma's soccer games and school events, still called Emma on Tuesday evenings just to talk about her day. The board could monitor their professional relationship all they wanted, but they couldn't touch what happened in Nathan's home, in his life, in the slowly expanding circle that was becoming something that felt almost like family. It was Marcus who finally said what Nathan had been avoiding thinking about. They were having lunch at the sandwich shop near the office, and Marcus had been watching Nathan pick at his food without actually eating any of it for about 10 minutes. You're in love with her, Marcus said flatly. Nathan's head snapped up. What? No, absolutely not. You're in love with her, and you're too terrified to admit it because she looks like Olivia, and that feels like betrayal. Moise. That's not... Nathan stopped. Marcus, that's insane. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you spend every available moment with her. Emma adores her. And you get this look on your face when someone mentions her name. That's not family-friendly affection, man. That's something else. Nathan felt his stomach twist. She's Olivia's sister. Half-sister, who Olivia knew for one weekend, who Olivia wanted to be part of your family. Marcus leaned forward. Look, I'm not saying it's not complicated. It's the definition of complicated. But pretending you don't have feelings isn't going to make them go away. I don't have feelings. I have grief and confusion and a 6-year-old daughter who needs stability. And you have feelings for Evelyn Hart that you're refusing to acknowledge because you think loving someone new means you didn't love Olivia enough. Nathan pushed his sandwich away, his appetite completely gone. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? I watched you barely survive for 2 years after Olivia died. I watched you go through the motions of living without actually being alive. And then Evelyn showed up and suddenly you're different. You smile more. You engage with people. You seem like you might actually want to exist instead of just enduring existence. Marcus paused. That's not nothing, Nathan. It's also not love, if you say so. But the conversation stuck with Nathan like a splinter he couldn't quite dig out. That night, lying awake in the bed he used to share with Olivia, he forced himself to actually examine what he felt when he thought about Evelyn. Relief, definitely. Having someone who understood the specific loss of Olivia, who could talk about her without that careful, pitying tone everyone else used. Gratitude that Emma had family beyond just him, that she was building a relationship with someone who genuinely cared about her. Comfort in the routine they'd established, the predictable rhythm of Friday dinners and weekend adventures and text messages about nothing important. And underneath all of that, something he'd been deliberately not looking at, something that felt dangerous to name. The way his chest loosened when Evelyn walked into a room. The way he found himself looking for excuses to text her. The way her laugh made him feel lighter than he'd felt in years. The way he'd started noticing small things about her that had nothing to do with Olivia. The way she drummed her fingers on tables when she was thinking. The way she drank her coffee too hot and burned her tongue every single time. The way she was terrible at hiding her emotions even though she thought she was excellent at it. Nathan rolled over and stared at the empty side of the bed. Olivia had been dead for 2 years, 4 months, and 13 days. And Nathan was starting to fall in love with her sister. The realization felt like betrayal and inevitability and relief all at once. He didn't sleep that night. Just lay there thinking about Olivia's journal entry about love expanding instead of dividing, about Dr. Chen's words that Nathan had only heard secondhand, about what it meant to move forward when forward felt like abandonment. The next morning, exhausted and wrung out, Nathan made a decision. He called Dr. Chen's office and made an appointment. The therapist's office was in a quiet building downtown, decorated in shades of beige that were probably meant to be calming, but mostly just felt boring. Doctor. Chen turned out to be a man in his 60s with kind eyes and a way of sitting very still that made you want to fill the silence with truth. Evelyn mentioned you might call, he said after Nathan introduced himself. She was worried about you after the board meeting. She told you about that? She tells me about most things. We've been working together since shortly after Olivia died. Dr. Chen settled into his chair. What brings you here, Nathan? So Nathan talked. About the past 2 years, about the grief that had become his constant companion, about Emma and the impossible task of single parenting and the way he'd been barely holding it together until Evelyn appeared, about the board meeting and the gossip and Marcus's accusation over sandwiches. He said, I'm in love with her, Nathan said, with Evelyn, and I don't know if he's right, but I can't stop thinking about it. And if he is right, what does that make me? What kind of person falls in love with his dead wife's sister? Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. What kind of person do you think it makes you? Disloyal, desperate, someone who's using Evelyn as a replacement for what I lost. Are you? Using her as a replacement? Nathan thought about that, really thought about it. No, she's nothing like Olivia in the ways that matter. Olivia was spontaneous and artistic and could find beauty in anything. Evelyn is controlled and strategic and struggles to let herself relax. Olivia made me feel grounded. Evelyn makes me feel seen, I guess. Like she understands the broken parts of me because she has the same broken parts. That doesn't sound like replacement. That sounds like connection. Blossom. But she looks exactly like Olivia. How do I know I'm not just responding to the familiar face? How do you feel when you look at her? Nathan closed his eyes, picturing Evelyn. Not the surface resemblance to Olivia, but the person underneath. Like I'm looking at someone who's survived things she shouldn't have had to survive. Someone who's built walls to protect herself and is slowly learning to let them down. Someone who's terrified of being abandoned again, but is showing up anyway. Ijamil. That's very specific observation for someone you only see as a familiar face. Nathan opened his eyes. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready to love someone new. Oh, when do you think you would be ready? I don't know. 5 years? 10? Never? Olivia died over 2 years ago. You've been grieving, raising your daughter alone, surviving. At what point does survival become permission to actually live again? Nathan didn't have an answer for that. Can I tell you what Olivia said to me? Dr. Chen asked. In our last session together, 3 days before she died. She was talking about her fear of introducing Evelyn to you, and she said something that stuck with me. She said, if something happens to me, I want Nathan to be happy. Not right away, maybe, but eventually. I want him to find joy again, even if it looks different from the joy we had together. Nathan felt his throat close up. She said that? She did. She also said she was afraid you'd get stuck in grief, that you'd hold on to her memory so tightly that you'd forget to hold on to your own life. Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly. Nathan, loving Evelyn doesn't erase what you had with Olivia. It doesn't mean you've forgotten her or betrayed her memory. It means you're doing exactly what she hoped you'd do. You're choosing to keep living. Nathan left the session feeling raw and exposed and slightly more clear than he'd felt in months. He sat in his car in the parking lot for 20 minutes processing, before finally pulling out his phone. He opened his messages with Evelyn and typed, "Can we talk? Not about work or Emma. About us." Her response came immediately. "I'll come over tonight after Emma's asleep." Nathan drove home, helped Emma with her homework, made dinner that neither of them ate much of, read 3 bedtime stories, and then waited in the living room for Evelyn to arrive. His heart beating like he was 16 again and asking someone to prom. She showed up at 8:30, looking nervous in a way he'd never seen her look before. "Hi," she said from the doorway. "Hi." They stood there for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. "Want to sit on the porch?" Nathan asked. "Yeah." They ended up in their usual spots, but the familiar setting didn't make this conversation any easier. "I saw Dr. Chen today," Nathan said. Evelyn's eyes widened. "You did?" "Yeah. He told me what Olivia said in their last session, about wanting me to be happy eventually." "She did want that. She told me the same thing, actually, in Boston. She said if anything ever happened to her, she hoped you'd find someone who could love Emma as much as she did." But Nathan looked at Evelyn. Did she know that something might happen to her? I don't think so. I think she was just acknowledging that life is unpredictable, that we don't get guarantees. "Marcus thinks I'm in love with you." Evelyn went very still. "What do you think?" "What?" Nathan took a breath. "I think I'm terrified of being in love with you. I think it feels like betrayal, even though Olivia's gone, and logically, I know she'd want me to move on. I think I don't know how to separate you from her in my head sometimes, and I think that's not fair to you." "Nathan, oh. But I also think," he continued, needing to get it all out, "that when I imagine my life a year from now, or 5 years from now, you're in it. Not as Emma's aunt who visits occasionally, as someone central, someone who matters in ways I'm scared to examine too closely." Evelyn was crying silently, tears running down her face in the porch light. "I'm scared too," she said. "I'm scared that you only see Olivia when you look at me. I'm scared that I'm a replacement, a second choice, the consolation prize. I'm scared that Emma will always wish I was her mother instead of her aunt. And I'm terrified that if I let myself love you and Emma the way I want to, something will happen and I'll lose you both." "Why would you lose us?" "Because everyone leaves, Nathan. My biological mother gave me up. My adoptive parents died. Olivia found me and died 3 weeks later. People don't stay in my life. That's just how it works." Nathan stood up and crossed to her chair, kneeling down so they were eye level. "I'm not leaving. Emma's not leaving. We're here, and we're staying here, and you're stuck with us. You can't promise that. You're right. I can't promise we won't die in some freak accident or get hit by a bus or have our hearts stop in the middle of making pancakes. But I can promise that as long as I'm alive, as long as Emma's alive, you have family. Real family. The kind that doesn't disappear just because things get hard or complicated or messy. Evelyn leaned forward until her forehead was resting against his. I love you, she whispered. I've been trying not to, but I do. I love the way you make Emma laugh. I love how you're a terrible cook, but you try anyway. I love that you kept all of Olivia's paintings, even though looking at them hurts. I love that you're letting me into your life, even though it would be easier not to. Nathan's hands came up to frame her face. I love you too, and I'm terrified, and I have no idea how to do this without feeling like I'm being disloyal to Olivia's memory, but I want to try anyway. What do we tell Emma? The truth. That adults can love more than one person in different ways. That loving you doesn't mean I loved her mother less. Evelyn pulled back slightly to look at him. What do we tell everyone else? The board, your coworkers, the soccer moms? Multi-moms. Nathan laughed despite everything. That it's none of their business, that we're adults who can make our own choices about our own lives. They're going to lose their minds. Probably. Are you okay with that? Nathan thought about the past 2 years, about choosing survival over living, about grief so heavy he could barely breathe through it, about the slow, painful process of learning to exist in a world without Olivia. And then he thought about the past few months, about Friday dinners and soccer games and conversations on this porch, about Emma's laughter and Evelyn's smile and the way hope had started to feel possible again. Yeah, he said, I'm okay with that. They sat there on the porch for a long time, holding each other, not talking, just being. And for the first time since Olivia died, Nathan felt something other than grief fill his chest. He felt possibility. The next morning, Nathan woke Emma up earlier than usual and made pancakes, slightly burned as always, but Emma ate them anyway. Bug, I need to talk to you about something important, he said as they sat at the kitchen table. Emma looked up from her syrup-drenched breakfast. Am I in trouble? No. But I need to tell you something about Aunt Evelyn and me. Emma set down her fork, suddenly serious. Okay. You know how I loved Mommy very much, right? Uh-huh. Us. And you know I'll always love Mommy. She'll always be important to me and to you, and nothing will ever change that. I know, Daddy. Nathan took a breath. Chie. I know, Daddy. Nathan. But I also have feelings for Aunt Evelyn. Different feelings from what I had with Mommy, but still important. And I wanted to tell you first before I told anyone else, because you're the most important person in my life. Emma considered this with the seriousness only a 6-year-old could muster. Do you love Aunt Evelyn? Yeah, Bug, I do. Does Aunt Evelyn love you? She does. Are you going to get married? Nathan almost smiled at how quickly Emma's mind went there. I don't know, maybe someday. But we're going to take things slow and see how it goes. Emma went back to her pancakes, seemingly unconcerned. Then after a few bites, Sophie's dad got married again after her first mom died. Sophie has a stepmom now, and she says it's okay because her stepmom is nice and buys her ice cream. I'm busky. How do you feel about that? About maybe having Aunt Evelyn become more than just your aunt? Emma shrugged. I like Aunt Evelyn. She's good at painting with me, and she doesn't make me eat vegetables I don't like. She paused. Will she move in with us? Not right away. Like I said, we're taking things slow. But maybe later. Maybe later. Yeah. Emma seemed satisfied with this answer. She finished her pancakes and announced she needed to get ready for school, leaving Nathan sitting at the kitchen table marveling at how children could accept impossible things with such grace. At work, Nathan requested a meeting with the board. Linda tried to talk him out of it, warned him that stirring things up again was asking for trouble. But Nathan was done caring about what the board thought. He and Evelyn walked into the boardroom together, and this time Nathan wasn't nervous. He was just done. Thank you for seeing us, Evelyn started. We wanted to update you on our relationship status. Richard Knowles looked wary. Go on. Nathan and I are dating, Evelyn said clearly. "We're in a romantic relationship. We wanted to inform you officially rather than let rumors continue." The board members exchanged glances. "This is highly irregular," Patricia said. "A bull mopis." "Why?" Nathan asked. "Two single adults choosing to date each other is irregular?" "When one is the CEO and one is a senior architect, yes." "Then I'll resign," Evelyn said calmly. The room went silent. "What?" Richard looked genuinely shocked. "I'll resign from the CEO position. I care more about my relationship with Nathan and Emma than I care about this job. So if it's a choice between the two, I choose them." Nathan stared at her. They hadn't discussed this, hadn't even considered it. "Evelyn," he started. "I mean it," she said, looking at him. "I've spent my whole life prioritizing career over everything else because I didn't have anything else to prioritize. But I do now, and I'm not losing it because of corporate politics." Richard cleared his throat. "That's not necessary. Ms. Hart, you're an excellent CEO. We don't want to lose you." "Then stop trying to dictate our personal lives. We have policies." Your policies don't account for unique circumstances," Nathan interrupted. "They don't account for grief and family and doing the best we can with an impossible situation. And frankly, we're tired of being treated like we're doing something wrong when all we're doing is trying to build a life together." "If this relationship deteriorates," Patricia said slowly, "it could create a hostile work environment. If it deteriorates, one of us will transfer to a different firm," Evelyn said. "We're not children. We can handle our own professional consequences." The board members talked among themselves for a few minutes while Nathan and Evelyn waited. Finally, Richard spoke. "We're going to allow the relationship under the existing oversight measures. But if there's any indication of favoritism, any hint of impropriety, we'll have to revisit this conversation." "Understood," Evelyn said. They left the boardroom together, and Nathan was still processing what Evelyn had said. "You were really going to quit," he said once they were alone in the elevator. "I was." "Evelyn, you love that job. I love you more." She said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Jobs are replaceable. Family isn't. Nathan kissed her then, in the elevator, not caring if someone saw or if it got back to the board or if it caused another round of gossip. He just kissed her, and she kissed him back, and it felt like the beginning of something instead of the end. The gossip at work was intense for about 2 weeks. And then someone in the marketing department had an affair with someone in accounting, and everyone had new drama to discuss. Emma told her class that her dad had a girlfriend and got asked 100 questions that she answered with the blunt honesty of a 6-year-old. The soccer moms whispered for a while and then moved on to other topics. Life continued, reshaped, but still recognizably theirs. 3 months later, on a Saturday afternoon, Nathan took Evelyn to Olivia's storage studio, the small garage space where he'd moved all her unfinished paintings after she died. "I want to do something with these," he said, gesturing at the canvases stacked against every wall. Olivia always talked about having a show someday, exhibiting her work. She never thought she was good enough, but she was wrong. Evelyn walked slowly through the space, looking at each painting. "These are incredible, Nathan." "I know, and I think other people should get to see them, not to make money or become famous, just to honor her, to show that she existed and created beautiful things and mattered." "What are you thinking? A gallery show?" "More than that, a permanent exhibition. Maybe at the Community Arts Center. Something where Emma can go when she's older and see her mother's work. Where people who never knew Olivia can still experience what she could do." Evelyn turned to look at him. "That's a beautiful idea. Will you help me organize it? I don't know anything about art exhibitions." "Of course I'll help." They spent the next 4 months planning the exhibition. Evelyn used her business connections to secure space at the Charlotte Arts Center. Marcus and Linda helped with the logistics. Emma picked which paintings should be displayed together, using criteria only a 7-year-old could understand, but somehow getting it right anyway. The night before the opening, Nathan and Evelyn stood in the gallery space looking at Olivia's work properly displayed for the first time. "She would have loved this," Evelyn said quietly. "Yeah. She would have also been terrified and tried to cancel the whole thing at the last minute. Sounds like her." Nathan put his arm around Evelyn's shoulders. Thank you for helping make this happen. Thank you for letting me be part of it. The exhibition opened on a Sunday afternoon. The turnout was better than Nathan expected. Coworkers from the firm, Emma's teachers, parents from soccer, people who'd known Olivia, and people who'd never met her but were drawn to her art. Emma wore her favorite yellow dress and stood in front of her mother's painting of the woman silhouetted against the sunset, explaining to anyone who asked that this was her mommy. And her mommy was a really good painter. Nathan watched his daughter talk about Olivia without sadness, just pride and love, and the simple acceptance that her mother had existed and mattered and was gone. He watched Evelyn circulate through the gallery, talking to guests, her hand occasionally finding his across the room in a gesture of connection that no longer needed to be hidden. And he thought about how grief doesn't end, it just transforms. How love doesn't divide, it expands. How moving forward doesn't mean forgetting what came before. Later that evening, after the guests had left and Emma was home with a babysitter, Nathan and Evelyn sat alone in the gallery among Olivia's paintings. I've been thinking about something, Evelyn said. What's that? When we first met, when you walked into that conference room and saw my face, you looked at me like I was a ghost, like I was something impossible that shouldn't exist. I remember. How do you look at me now? Nathan turned to face her fully. Now when I look at you, I see you, not Olivia, not her sister, not a reminder of what I lost, just you. Evelyn Hart, who's terrible at cooking and excellent at spreadsheets and loves my daughter like she's her own. Who shows up when she says she will and doesn't run when things get hard. Who's teaching me that it's possible to build something new without destroying what came before. Evelyn's eyes were bright with tears. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. What do you see when you look at me? I see someone who's survived something that should have broken him and came out the other side still capable of love. Someone who's an amazing father and a loyal friend and occasionally very stubborn about accepting help. She smiled. I see home. For the first time in my life, I see home. I'm a summer. 6 months later, on a quiet Saturday morning, Nathan brought Evelyn back to the park where they'd first met Emma. The same park where Olivia used to bring Emma to watch sunsets and jump in puddles and do all the small things that become big things when you lose them. Emma was at a sleepover, giving Nathan and Evelyn rare time alone. They sat on a bench overlooking the playground, and Nathan pulled out a small box. I'm not doing this the traditional way, he said, because nothing about us has been traditional, and I don't want to pretend otherwise. Evelyn looked at the box, then at his face. Nathan, I'm not asking you to replace Olivia. I'm not asking you to be Emma's mother, even though you already are in every way that matters. I'm just asking if you want to keep doing this, building this weird, complicated, beautiful family we've somehow created, making it official. You're asking me to marry you. I'm asking you to marry us, me and Emma, the whole package. Evelyn was crying and laughing at the same time. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. Is that a no? That's a yes, you idiot. Obviously yes. Nathan opened the box. Inside was a ring. Nothing expensive or flashy, just a simple band with a small stone that caught the light. Emma helped pick it out, he said. She said it needed to be pretty, but not too fancy because you don't like fancy things. Emma's very perceptive. Nathan slipped the ring onto Evelyn's finger. It fit perfectly. They sat there in the park where so much of their story had unfolded, holding each other. And Nathan thought about Olivia, about how she'd spent her life afraid of impermanence and scarcity, collecting people because she didn't believe in permanence, about how she'd found her sister and dreamed of building a bigger family and died before any of it could happen. But it had happened anyway. Maybe not in the way Olivia envisioned, maybe not with her here to see it, but her dream had come true nonetheless. Emma had an aunt who loved her. Nathan had someone who understood his grief and loved him anyway. Evelyn had the family she'd been searching for her entire life. And Olivia's art would live on in a gallery where strangers could discover it and be moved by it and understand that she had existed and created beauty and mattered deeply. 3 months later, they got married in the same park, with Emma standing between them holding both their hands. It was a small ceremony, just close friends, a few family members. Marcus officiating because he'd gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose and wouldn't stop making jokes about it. The reception was held at the Arts Center, surrounded by Olivia's paintings. Emma had insisted on this, saying Mommy should be part of the wedding even if she couldn't actually be there. As Nathan danced with Evelyn to a song neither of them had particularly strong feelings about, but Emma had insisted was romantic, he looked over at his daughter dancing with Marcus, her yellow dress spinning in circles, her laughter filling the gallery. "What are you thinking?" Evelyn asked. "I'm thinking about how life never turns out the way you expect it to." "Is that good or bad?" "Both. Neither. Just true." Nathan pulled her closer. "I'm thinking about how 2 years ago I was barely surviving, and now I'm married to someone I didn't even know existed. I'm thinking about how Emma has an aunt who would do anything for her. I'm thinking about how Olivia's art is hanging on these walls, and people are seeing it and loving it, and she's not here to know any of it." "She knows," Evelyn said quietly. "Somehow. Wherever she is, she knows." Nathan wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe that Olivia could see what her dream had become, how her sister and her husband and her daughter had taken the broken pieces she'd left behind and created something whole. Maybe she could. Maybe death didn't mean disconnection, just transformation into something different. Or maybe it didn't matter either way. Maybe what mattered was that they were here, alive, choosing to love each other despite grief and complications and impossible circumstances, choosing to move forward while honoring what came before, choosing to let loss transform into something that made room for new joy without erasing old pain. That night, after the reception ended and Emma fell asleep in the car on the way home, Nathan carried his daughter up to bed while Evelyn followed behind. They tucked Emma in together, and she mumbled something about the wedding being pretty before drifting back to sleep. Nathan and Evelyn stood in the doorway of Emma's room, watching her breathe. "We're going to mess this up sometimes," Nathan said quietly. "Parenting together, being married, all of it. We're going to have fights and bad days and moments where we have no idea what we're doing." "I know. And people are still going to whisper, still going to think it's weird that I married my dead wife's sister. Let them think whatever they want." Nathan turned to look at Evelyn, his wife now, which was going to take some getting used to. "No regrets?" "Not a single one. You?" "Not about this. Not about you." He paused. "I wish Olivia could have been here to see it. I wish she could have known that her dream actually came true. Maybe she did know. Maybe that last session with Dr. Chen when she talked about wanting you to be happy, maybe she knew somehow that it would be me." Evelyn leaned against the doorframe. "I don't believe in fate or destiny or any of that, but I believe Olivia loved us both enough to want us to find each other, even if she couldn't be here to facilitate it." Nathan thought about that, about Olivia's list of adventures she'd wanted to share with Evelyn, about how Nathan and Evelyn had done most of those things together, just without Olivia there to see it, about how love could survive death by transforming into something different, but no less real. "I think you're right," he said finally. "I think she'd be happy about this. Maybe not happy she's missing it, but happy it's happening." They went to bed in the house that used to be Nathan's alone, then became Nathan and Emma's, and was now home to all three of them. And as Nathan lay there next to his wife, listening to Emma's soft breathing from down the hall, he thought about how the human heart was bigger than anyone gave it credit for. Big enough to hold grief and joy simultaneously. Big enough to love someone who was gone and someone who was here. Big enough to survive loss and still find room for hope. He'd spent 2 years thinking survival was the best he could hope for. But somewhere along the way, without meaning to, without even noticing, survival had transformed into living. And living, messy and complicated and full of uncertainty, turned out to be worth all the risk and fear and impossible choices it required. Nathan fell asleep next to his wife in a house full of family, surrounded by evidence that love could survive anything if you let it change shape instead of insisting it stay the same. And if Olivia was watching from somewhere beyond death, he hoped she could see what her dream had become. Hoped she knew that her sister was loved and her daughter was thriving, and her husband had learned that moving forward didn't mean leaving her behind. It just meant carrying her memory into a future she'd helped create, even if she couldn't stay to see it bloom.